Hello, and welcome to Big Dumb Movie, where we review movies of the big dumb variety. I'm your host, Corey, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Mr. Alan.
Hello.
And Mr. Steve.
Good day.
Do you guys like it when people say Mr. and then the first name? Like, get it? Because it's not Mr. that. It's actually the first name.
I find it awkward.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I've already made things weird.
Yeah, you've been doing that for weeks.
That's true, I have. 1991, Hook, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's a movie, isn't it?
It is a movie. That's a good way to describe it. It's a movie.
Alan, would you agree that it's a movie?
Oh yeah, it's a long movie. Way longer than I expected.
It is pretty long. That is one of the complaints that it got upon its original release. It had very mixed reviews in 1991, although it did make a shitload of money. Hook had a $70 million budget. It's kind of a lot. It's a pretty big budget. It made over $300 million worldwide. Pretty successful, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, critically, people were on the fence, and the length is definitely something people have complained about. It's directed by Steven Spielberg, like I mentioned before. Now, he is a man that has directed many a movie, some good, some less than. I wanted to ask you guys, before we talk about Hook itself, what's your favorite or least favorite, or both, as far as Steven Spielberg films? Alan, what are you thinking?
My favorite Steven Spielberg movie would have to be Saving Private Ryan. And my least favorite one would have to be Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh, you son of a bitch. So here's the thing with these answers. I'm going to apply a rule. We can't use each other's answers.
Well, fuck. Because I'm pretty sure we all came up with the same answer for least favorite.
The same movie I least favorite. We all agree
right, fine. I'll give a different one.
Do you want me to go to fill time?
Yeah, absolutely. You go first. Now I got to think about my answer for a second because that was an easy go-to for me.
Yes.
I'd say, just for me, my least favorite, and I'm just going to answer least favorite for now. My least favorite is probably The Post, which is just fucking boring as fuck. I did see that movie. I'm not just saying this based on the trailers or anything. I saw it in theaters in 2017, I think it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of lame. Like, it's fine, I guess, but it's not, it's really not like a fun or interesting movie. It's just like, I guess if you were there, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
It's not a good one.
No, not really. Steve, what do you got for us?
I mean, as far as favorite goes, I'm gonna have to just do a least favorite because it's just too many to pick from. The first, 3/4 of the Indiana Jones films and Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The guy's resume is insane. I think if I had to pick a favorite, or least favorite, I guess 1941. It's got Dan Aykroyd and James Belushi in it. It's a movie that not a lot of people really like. It's a comedy. I don't think it's quite as bad as it sometimes gets made out. It's about a couple of guys, and they go do some stupid shit right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and not really a very good. It's not a standout Spielberg film. It's probably my least favorite, other than Crystal Skull, since I'm not allowed to use it.
Yeah, I played the game, but I never saw that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like airplanes, right? Like,
oh, that's a different, not related to each other, but the game is called 1941, and it is about planes. Yes.
It's a good game.
Oh, that's like the arcade shooter with all the bullets everywhere.
Shooter, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And it gets like insane towards the end, or bosses, or it just starts getting crazy.
That one was awesome.
Those games get nuts where there's just like shit on the screen just like everywhere.
And you have to somehow just fucking perfectly get through it, and people are like godly.
Yep. I love it. It's so good. The film Hook. Steve, surely you know something about how this movie was made. It was a long time ago. It was back in your day. I imagine you were,
back in my day.
I imagine you were a little kid in a suit taking notes on current events and movies being made.
Right. I was 8, so I was up on it. No, I mean, all I know now is the guy that wrote it, James Hart, said he was inspired to write it after his son asked him what Peter Pan would be like as an adult. And that kind of sprung the idea. And I'm pretty sure I think the writing process was pretty smooth. It probably took more than one draft, but didn't involve like a whole bunch of different writers. And I don't think any really, at least not well known, at least many major rewrites. And Spielberg apparently liked it enough that he just decided to take it on. I think I remember reading at one point that he was not initially interested in it, but I can't remember what got Spielberg on board with wanting to do it.
Well, on the subject of James Hart, I think it's kind of funny that his version of Peter Pan as an adult is probably just like him in real life. He's like, well, you know,
Right.
he doesn't pay attention to his kids and he drinks, you know? But he's very successful in his business, kid, okay? What were you going to say, Alan?
He has to take important phone calls. But back to Steve's point, I was actually going to ask what he just said is we don't know how Spielberg got involved in this because he's a pretty big director at this point even. How did he get on board with this?
Well, I know that he was working on something related to this in the 80s, right? So he was working on a live-action Peter Pan.
Yeah.
And Michael Jackson was slated to play Peter Pan. Michael Jackson dropped out when he was told that Peter Pan was going to be an adult, right? He wanted to play a kid.
Wait, really?
But still himself. And he's not a kid, so there's that. Oh, no. But anyway, things kind of changed somewhere along the lines. It was going to be a musical. There was some music written for it, actually, and 2 of the songs that were written do appear in this film. But, you know, it was later changed. Like Steve said, Spielberg dropped, then he came back on. It was rewritten, and it is what it is now.
They tried to get Bowie to play Captain Hook, David Bowie. So I wonder if that was an extension of the concept that it would have been a musical to have him involved.
And that would have been cool. I mean, I like David Bowie a lot, but I do like what we got as Hook.
No, absolutely. Hoffman was standout for sure.
And what about Robin Williams? How did he get on this? He's pretty big at this point.
They actually offered the part to multiple people, including, I think, Tom Hanks first. And I don't think Robin Williams was their first choice. And I know that he wanted Richard Attenborough to play the Toodles character, and it ended up not being able to happen because Attenborough was directing Chaplin, and he ended up working with him on Jurassic Park. And then as an extension of that, he wanted Joseph Missoula. Or, well, I don't know if they really wanted him, but they had him audition for the part of Jack's son, the part that went to Charlie Korsmo. They decided he was too young, and then Spielberg ended up using him in Jurassic Park.
And then Spielberg used John Williams for the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, as he did many a time.
Yeah, this is like a thing with directors. They always work like the same composers or actors and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you see it a lot with especially like the big name guys, you know. Spielberg is the obvious one, but I was noticing that with Tarantino when I saw it Once Upon a Time in Hollywood recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of that film? Last time I saw you hadn't seen it.
I really enjoyed it. I have some more involved thoughts on it now, but overall, I'd say I really enjoyed it.
I liked it. I thought it wasn't a masterpiece, but it was still really good.
Steve, you got some complaints?
I wouldn't call them complaints. Like, I intentionally made sure that I knew as little as possible about what was actually going to go on in the course of the story because I didn't want to... I wanted to let it happen for me and be engaged in the story and not be sitting there waiting for certain moments to happen. But the movie felt a little more aimless than I was expecting it to. In some regards, I'm not saying overall like in entirety, but there were parts of it where it's like we've got this cast of characters, we know what we want to have happening around them and what some of the things they're going to be involved in are, but we're not really sure where they're supposed to end up. And then they get to the end and it's kind of like they don't even touch on the Tate LaBianca murders. It's just, I mean, the action sequence at the end was fantastic. I loved it. It's hilarious. But it's like, you know, it's like, oh, okay, here are these guys. And then, the movie's over. And, you know, like they spent all this time getting you attached to Sharon Tate. And it's like, nothing really happens with her, you know. It's just kind of...
She lives.
She lives.
You get it, right?
Right. No, absolutely.
I agree with Steve. I think that's a pretty well summarized.
See, this is why I've warned people, and I think I mentioned this to you guys, to, when you see it, know that it's a comedy.
Well, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's a Tarantino movie. And I knew it was not an accurate, like, historical portrayal of the Manson murders. I don't know what I was expecting, really, other than a Tarantino experience. And I think in that regard, it absolutely delivered.
You got enough feet up in your face?
You got enough feet up in your face, Mr. Foot Fetish Man?
I thought it was kind of meta how, Leonardo DiCaprio played the actor but he's basically an actor just like that. He's like a real actor. It's like Tropic Thunder. He's a guy playing a guy or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think the key difference being, you're right, there's a lot of layers to him being, because, yeah. But I think the difference is that he's not quite in that washed up state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or I don't know if he'll ever be, because he's like,
Yeah, I don't think
been
so.
one of the biggest actors his whole life.
You can never, legends
was a
never
kid.
die. Yeah. Well, I don't know. You know, actors go crazy. They're just people. That's happened before. I mean, I hope it doesn't, but you never know.
For sure. Well, speaking of actors, we got a pretty good colorful cast in Hook. We got Dustin Hoffman as the title character of Captain Hook. We got Robin Williams, rest in peace, Robin Williams, as Peter Banning / Peter Pan.
Hashtag the only true genie.
That's right. Will Smith hater over here.
Right.
Any chance you get, right?
Absolutely. Every chance I get.
We got Bob Hoskins as Smee. Maggie Smith as Granny Wendy. Charlie Cosmo plays Jack. He's a pretty big part of the movie. He's really good. He's a
Yeah.
little kid. And then, who am I missing?
We have Gwyneth Paltrow
Yeah, that's right. We have a Gwyneth Paltrow cameo.
and Julia Roberts, which I asked you twice about.
There it is. Julia Roberts, my mom's favorite.
Yeah, I asked you twice because I forgot I asked you. I was like, who's that chick?
She was apparently difficult. The crew apparently took to calling her Tinkerbell even outside of her scenes just because she was such a princess about shit.
Yeah, so this is the quote that I got, which might maybe make it a little bit easier to understand that she was being difficult. Spielberg did say it was difficult working with Julia Roberts, but apparently she was suffering a mental disorder at the time after a very bad relationship breakup.
Well, yeah, she was supposed to get married to Kiefer Sutherland, and something happened like the week of their wedding, and it didn't happen. The wedding didn't happen, and she actually just went to Ireland. She got on a plane and just went to Ireland, and Spielberg had to threaten to fire her to get her to come back. But then at some other point, she got checked into a hospital for, and in quotes, like anxiety or some shit like that. And to make up with her, Spielberg brought her a teddy bear. But it was the bear they were supposed to use in the scene in the treehouse later.
Daddy.
Right. So we ended up having to send the crew on this crazed last minute witch hunt so that he wouldn't have to be the kind of dick that went back and was like, yeah, actually, we need that. So
It's an irreplaceable prop.
right.
That teddy bear is actually in 2 scenes, interestingly. So it's in Neverland, but it is also in Granny Wendy's house. It's in the
Right.
living room. It's by Toodles.
Oh, Toodles.
Yeah.
He's so much fun.
Well, let's get into the movie. Steve, why don't you kick it off? How does this film start us off?
The film starts off with a elementary school play of Peter Pan, of the story of Peter Pan, and Peter, the main character who we find out is Peter Pan. He's the father. He's in the theater or in the auditorium watching along with his wife and his other child, his son, played by Charlie Cosmo, and his daughter is playing, I guess, the equivalent of Wendy. And they're kind of going over, you get the first little hint of like what the Peter Pan story is, and Wendy and him were sort of in love with each other, and it's kind of the introduction to, hey, that's the world we're in for this. But it's not long before Peter has to take a business-related phone call in the auditorium.
What do you think about that, Alan?
I loved his Motorola. I don't know the exact model.
Pre-StarTAC.
I can picture it, and I know that because I remember my dad actually had that pretty much same one.
You
I
had
remember
that flip phone?
Yeah, with the antenna that pulls out, like the round little antenna you have to pull out to get better reception.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same cell phone that the villain has in Dumb and Dumber. But anyway.
Yeah, so he pulls out his sweet Motorola phone. He pulls out the antenna, which, by the way, you actually had to, because if you didn't pull out the antenna, you would basically get no receptions. Like, you had to pull out the antenna to use it, which he does.
I would say no bars, but there was no screen. So bars did not exist.
And, yeah, he just goes on like the cliche trope where he has to take this important business call, and he's in the middle of the audience and the play's still going, and he's just talking about business with this guy Brad and just saying stuff, like, oh, what's the deal? We got to do this, and he just talks for like a whole minute almost about stuff, and no one tells him to shut up.
And Jack's in the audience with him, and he's like, "Wait, Dad, you're coming to my game tomorrow, right?" And he has a glove, and he like puts it in his face. He's like, so the audience knows like what kind of game. It's a baseball game. This kid brought his glove to the auditorium.
So there's two little girls on stage in this elementary school play. One is supposed to be Peter's daughter. The other little girl is Dustin Hoffman's real-life daughter.
Oh, really?
And all three of his kids appeared in the movie at one point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Lost Boys, probably?
Yeah, one of the two is one of the Lost Boys, I think, and the other one appears on Jack's Little League team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Poor Jack's Little League team. So that's the next scene. It goes to Jack's game the next day.
Oh, no. The other son played the 5-year-old version of Peter. There's that one scene where 5-year-old Peter kind of visits Wendy at the window. That's one of Dustin Hoffman's other kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we see Jack's game. It's the next day. It's kind of his last game of the season. He really wants his dad to be there. It's clear that, like, Peter has not gone to any games. They don't say that directly, but I think it's heavily implied.
Right.
And he's like, just go to this one game. He notices his dad isn't there, and he just, like, whiffs, like, strikes out. It's kind of sad. You guys were making fun of him, I think, a little bit, right?
I was making fun of that whole scene when before he gets to the game, he's leaving the office, and he has this very weird kind of like cell phone quick draw like interaction with one of his coworkers, and I just didn't understand what that was supposed to be.
It's like he is like clearly wasting time in the office. You think he has this big business meeting, but really he's fucking around doing like adult play.
He gets into his kids' games and he's having like cell phone draws with his coworkers.
Yeah, that kind of sets it up like where he is with his family. Like he's not really there. That's the thing, right? Anyway, they're going out to London like the next day. They fly on Pan Am Airlines, of course.
Which ended up going bankrupt and closing down its operations the week before the movie came out.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It was really one nice touch, totally unrelated, with Blade Runner 2049. Is the original was made in 82? Either 82 or 84, but Atari and Pan Am had these big ads in the cityscape because both companies were still in business at the time. So just to keep the continuity, they kept them on the landscape for 2049, and I think ultimately the inference is supposed to be this is basically just an alternate reality where those companies still exist.
For sure.
Yeah.
That is definitely inference. And I noticed that too.
Right.
I mean, you got to notice the Atari. It's seriously massive.
Right. It's huge. It's so good though. Oh.
Steve always takes it back to Blade Runner.
Absolutely.
I always take it back to Star Wars.
Well, either one's fine. Either was a lot of Star Wars to take back this one too.
So, ironically, Peter's afraid of flying, and they're going to London to visit their granny Wendy, who's the woman that kind of like took Peter in when he was a boy and got him adopted, right?
Yeah, I mean, so this is really sort of an unofficial sequel to Disney's version of Peter Pan. And in the original story, Peter is floating around London. He goes to what would have been his childhood home. He finds his mother and father have had another child, and he believes they've forgotten him. So he starts visiting other windows, and he finds a second-story window leading into what, in England at the time, they would have referred to as a nursery, which is basically a big room that was shared by kids. And inside this room, he finds several kids, siblings, one of whom is Wendy, and he immediately falls in love with her. And
so here's the thing. I gotta cut you off there. I never really got the vibe that he was in love with her so much as she was in love with him.
You know what? I think that's fair. I've always struggled to find the right word to describe his feeling toward her because he seems to treat her almost like a mother, a sister, and a love interest all rolled into one. And I mean that in the most innocent possible way because he really is a child. But I can see where you're coming from. I wouldn't disagree with you about that necessarily. And in any case, so the way they set it up for this, because at the end of the original story, he goes back to Neverland, and she ends up staying in the real world with her siblings. And in this version of the story, he comes back and visits over a period of years. Eventually, he finds that Wendy has become an older woman. He decides that he wants to stay in the real world with her, probably realizing she's eventually going to die, and he won't have her around at all. And she helps get him adopted by an American family, so he goes to the U.S., and as years pass, he loses his memory of ever having been in Neverland to begin with, but he ends up actually falling in love with and marrying Wendy's granddaughter.
Yes, Moira.
This is a problem I had that, Steve, you just summarized a lot there. But seeing it for the first time, basically, it was really confusing. And look, I don't know a lot about Peter Pan, but I know the basics. I get the idea. I've heard of Peter Pan. read the story. But even just knowing a little bit about it, it was still confusing.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, why did they name it Hook? It was no secret it was about Peter Pan. But why did they name it Hook and not Peter Pan?
I mean, it really could have been Peter Pan too, but I don't know, I guess because the idea was this one was as much about the Hook character as it was about Peter.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it is. And, you know, Dustin Hoffman is top billed in the movie.
Yeah.
Being that he's the title character.
You're expected to know about Peter Pan seeing this, right? What if I didn't know anything about Peter Pan? I would have been more lost.
I understand why someone could be lost, but I was never lost. And I've seen this movie a lot since a very young age.
Yeah.
And I was never lost. So I guess it's just a I don't know, different perspective. Maybe I was more exposed to Peter Pan. I did watch that shit out of that animated movie as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I had seen it so many times that by the time I got taken to see this in a theater at 8, like I knew the story, the Peter Pan story inside and out.
I forgot that. So you did see this in theaters?
Oh yeah, my mom's mom. One of the real nice touches. My mom's the oldest of 4. Her siblings all had multiple kids. So when we were all growing up, there was a huge group of us. My grandmother would periodically take all of us and our parents to the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood to see big Disney releases and other stuff. We saw a lot of Disney movies there as a family, like extended family, and we all got taken one day to see this. I can remember seeing it with all my cousins, my aunts, and I was like 15, 18, 19 of us there. And it was cool. It was fun.
Right on.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to see this in theaters, I don't think, but I did watch this on VHS.
Nice.
Probably more than any movie I ever watched on VHS. And considering I watched shit a lot, like T2 and, many others, that's a big statement.
Right.
I think it's safe to say I've seen this movie more times than any movie.
Really?
Which is probably, like, no joke, like at least 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, within the last couple of years, I've seen it probably even 10 times. So.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. I love this film.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, let's talk about where we are next in the actual film, which is where Peter and his family are flying to London to go see Granny Wendy. And, you know, Jack is kind of still pissed at Peter, but he's making attempts to, like, you know, get back on his good side. But on the plane, Jack draws basically a picture of, I don't know, this kid has some issues, I think, right? He draws a picture of the plane crashing.
I think the daughter draws the picture.
She shows it to him.
Yeah, she shows it.
No, she shows it to him. She says, Jack drew this.
Yeah,
oh, she
right.
does?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed
she
the Jack
shows it
drew
to
this
him,
line.
but Jack drew it.
Yeah, that's right. And then everyone that's falling out of the plane has a parachute except the dad. Like, well, it's kind of dark, right? You got to take the kid to a shrink if that happens, right?
Yeah, it's kind of disturbing if your kid's drawing that at that age.
Like the dad dying.
Yeah.
I mean, this kid's pissed about this baseball game.
Like, well, let's back it up a step.
But, Alan, do you want to tell us about when they get to London? Like, how do things unfold there?
Oh, okay, yeah. So they get there and they get to the house, and Robin Williams, or Peter, he's kind of being a jerk. He's like telling him, like, stand up straight and you have to make a good first impression. And this is from the beginning. He's just kind of like a jerk guy. And they meet the granny. What's her name?
Wendy.
Wendy, that's it. They meet Wendy. They have the reunion. You see Toodles. You see Wendy. Who is the other?
Liza.
Totally unimportant character.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't remember her name. You see Liza, and then there's the dog. The dog had a name.
Nana.
Yeah.
And that's a reference to the animated film as well, because in the Disney animated Peter Pan, they had an English sheepdog named Nana. Of course, that was, I mean, the original Peter Pan story took place in 1900. So this would have been not the same dog. Yeah.
So you meet the whole, like, rest of the family, or all the characters.
And Maggie Smith, as we mentioned before, she plays Granny Wendy. She was 57 years old at the time of this filming, and she's clearly playing a woman in her 90s, it looks like, right?
I mean, assuming that the timeline is supposed to remain the same, then yeah, the original story took place in like 1900 or 1902, something like that, and this is 91, so yeah, she would have been in her early 90s, late 80s, early 90s.
That fooled me. I did not. I mean, I knew she was old, but that was some pretty good makeup there.
Yeah.
That fooled me.
Something that really failed to click with me as a kid, I didn't realize until I was a teenager, years after the fact that I had seen the movie 10, 12 times already, is that, like, it underscores how long this has really been. Like, Peter met her as a 17 or 18-year-old girl, like 70 years ago,
Or like
whatever
during
it was.
like World War One or some
Yeah,
shit.
even before World War One. Yeah, so like, Peter ended up marrying this woman's granddaughter 65 years after he'd met her as like a teenager. And at this point, they've known each other for close to 100 years.
And people wonder why the fuck he can't remember shit. He's so goddamn
old.
Yeah.
And he was already several years old when he met her. So like, yeah, that's crazy to think.
Yeah, who knows how long he's been in Neverland, since like the Victorian era, maybe.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's a really good chance that he was born in like the 1880s.
Yeah, seriously.
Like,
He's seen some shit,
or
dude.
earlier. I mean,
yeah.
This is like, which X-Men movie is it when they show Wolverine and Sabretooth?
Origins.
And they're like going through like the time period and fighting wars.
I actually do like that scene. That is the one good thing about that movie.
That
is
scene's
the intro
cool.
credit scene.
But
Because it shows them throughout like the times.
it was the worst casting for Sabretooth in the history of mankind.
Lee Schreiber?
Lee Schreiber's not a bad actor, but fuck, why a Sabretooth? What?
Did you like the other guy that didn't have any lines in the first X-Men movie?
No, Tyler Maine, I think was his name in the Bryan Singer's X-Men.
Yeah.
That was an obnoxious character too. The makeup and the fang things they put in his mouth.
You don't like him?
No, they cast that dude because he's like 7'3".
Yeah, you want 90s fucking Sabretooth. I know, you want furry back Sabretooth.
I'm okay without it being that, but like, I don't know. It should be this big, burly, just sociopath. Like, he's fucking crazed weirdo. With smarmy, the kind of dude that like, you're nervous the moment you realize he's in the room. You don't even know he's a mutant. It's just like, oh God, I need to leave.
What, a black trench coat doesn't do it for you? That's not enough?
Yeah.
What about Deadpool?
You don't even know how to kill me.
I'm gonna cut your goddamn head off. See if that works. I've seen that movie a lot too. That movie is so bad, it's good.
It is. Well, no, I don't know about that part, but
Peter Pan took a violent turn.
the Deadpool movies have been a lot of fun. My only real complaint with 2 was I wish that they'd made more use of the X Factor characers. But
X-Men 2?
Deadpool 2.
X-Force.
Oh.
Yeah, that's because I thought you asked me what I thought about Deadpool. Oh, you mean with the sealed shut mouth and the Wolverine? No, horrible.
The Merc without a mouth.
The Merc, yeah, right? The Merc without a mouth. And like the funniest thing about, I think, was at the end of the first one or the end of the second Deadpool where they retconned the scenes from,
Second.
That shit was funny. that was good. Right.
Oh, we could go all day.
Right?
So back at the Pan residence, there's some clear like shit going on with the family because Peter's like taking business calls. The kids are playing all around, and there's one scene that I always remember it. It's where he like fucking freaks out on the kids and he starts like yelling at them.
Oh, wait a minute. You're telling me a 10-inch owl has a 50-mile mating radius? Why don't they just fornicate someplace else? You're a $5 billion deal falling apart because of this? Why didn't somebody just shoot me in the head?
Bang! Bang!
Well, everybody just shut up!
I'm sorry.
And leave me alone for one moment more. Get him out of here, will you? I'm on the phone call of my life.
I mean, we've all been that kid, right? Where we're like fucking around and our parents are like, shut the fuck up. Like,
Right.
Like he
And we're
just
like, oh,
erupts.
God.
Like he's had enough, you know. He flips his shit. He's yelling at his kids. It's like, oh my God, he's yelling at his kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been that kid a lot.
No,
I just remember my father putting his hand on the back of my head and just sort of guiding me out of the room, closing the door behind me. Just get out.
Go away, Stevie. Dad's busy.
That's funny you mentioned that, and we're talking about kids.
Right.
Shout out to Ralphie at work, because one of the times I'll never forget, I was sitting on my cube, and Ralphie was talking to Ali about something, and you can hear him getting louder and louder. And just like a minute later, I just hear Ali. He's like, "Get the fuck out of my office!" And he's like slams his door. And I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, that was crazy. The whole office was silent.
Just get the fuck out, and just slams his door.
Oh my God.
Basically, Peter does that with his kids,
Yeah.
and they're like terrified. And Wendy's like, "What the fuck happened to this guy?" And you know, Wendy's still got that inner light. You know, she's still trying to teach the kids, like, no, actually, I was the real Wendy. This all really happened. I was
Right.
in this room, and you know, she even tells like everyone as soon as they arrive, like, no growing up, like, not while you're here. And basically, they have this big like event dinner, right?
Yeah, she's having like a wing at a hospital named after her.
Yes.
And they're having an event for that. And they also find Toodles living with her. It's another kind of touch, but Toodles was one of the Lost Boys, and somehow he also ended up living back in the regular world. And in one of the early drafts was supposed to have him ending up marrying her. And Wendy and he were a married couple.
Oh.
And they rewrote it to have him just be senile, and she doesn't, she can't bear herself to put him somewhere, so she just lets him keep living with her.
Right.
And then, you get the joke about, he's searching around the house going, I've lost my marbles. And it's like, haha, yeah, because he's senile. He's lost his marbles. And then it pays off at the end of the movie.
Right. He's literally looking for them.
Right. Although he's
Man.
also senile.
That made me feel
So you
so
get
dumb because it makes sense, but I took it so like at face value. I was like, oh, he's just looking for his marbles.
It's so
like,
funny you took it literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I took it when I
He
was a
literally
kid, too.
was though in the movie
Of course,
because
I
he
was a
got him
child.
back.
No,
He
it's
got
true.
him back.
It's just
I
it's
was like,
both,
I know.
he was looking for real marbles and he's,
But I realized at the end, I was like, oh, he's looking for his toy.
So on this night, the kids are at Grandma Wendy's house alone with Toodles and Liza's watching over them. Peter, Moira, and Wendy are at this event dinner, and, Wendy's getting recognized as being like this huge figure that like helped rescue a bunch of orphans, and like Steve said, she's getting a wing of a hospital made in her honor, and something starts happening, right? So it starts getting kind of spooky. The wind starts blowing really hard at the kids' house, and even like Wendy like notices like a disturbance in the force, so to speak. Alan, can you kind of tell us like what was going on here?
You can sum it up with that line. There's a disturbance in the force. You see, they're at the event, and it's like a gust of wind, which actually takes out a window that they never really seem to be too concerned about. So the window breaks, there's all this wind, it gets kind of chaotic for a second. She kind of falls over. You can see she like feels it, like she's affected by it. She kind of falls over, and everything gets chaotic for a minute. Like you can tell something's coming. There's a disturbance in the force.
She senses a presence she hasn't felt in a very long time.
What happens to the kids?
Are they
Steve?
back?
The kids get whisked away into the night. The window to the balcony in their bedroom opens, and a force we don't see comes into the room. And while they're kicking and screaming and having a fit about it, they just get whisked away. They disappear into the night.
And Liza's like freaking out, like, oh my god, the kids are being...
She doesn't
Taken
even
away.
bother going into the room to see what's happening. She's just like, oh my god, they're screaming, and then has her own little meltdown in the hallway.
She's fucking downstairs doing crossword puzzles. She's useless.
Fucking great. Like,
We thankfully get her last scene.
my mother used to think it was really funny, like in the animated film, that the kids get left in the care of Nana the sheepdog. But at least Nana the sheepdog actually like barked and did something when other people showed up. Liza wasn't a human. She didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like,
Dogs are never bad. Good boy.
Dogs are never bad.
right. No, look, I love dogs. I love sheepdogs. They're great. But like, not great babysitters.
I spent my life savings turning my van into a dog. Anyway, the different thing. So
Lloyd.
Peter, Grandma Wendy, and Moira, they get home and they see that there's something wrong. Like the place is all like torn apart. Toodles is kind of like, I don't know, like mumbling to himself or whatever. But I guess that's not that abnormal.
Because he lost his marbles.
He's still talking about his marbles. They go upstairs. They find the kids are gone. Like Liza's completely freaking out, and they see this like piece of parchment like daggered to the door with this like crazy fucking dagger that you can only find in like, those like weed like knife stores.
I'm gonna go out and say, I have to correct you. I have to be that guy. It was more just like a sword. It was like a dagger seems kind of smaller. This was like a full-handled like
I don't know,
saber.
I looked at it as always like a big dagger.
All right, Steve, you're the scientist.
It's like
Is this a dagger or a saber?
I believe it's like a large pirate knife, like handled. It's like it's longer than like a small knife, but it's not big enough to really be a sword. I don't think.
There it is, settled.
Right.
But the note says, let's see if I can remember it. It says, Dear Peter, your presence is required at the request of your children. Kindest regards, Captain Hook.
We've got Mary Jane. Oh wait, wrong Peter. Sorry.
Wait, what?
Right. Wait, Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah.
It said J-A-S hook.
Yeah.
Did they ever explain? Did I miss that? What's the JAS?
They give his first name as James, but they never, I don't think, ever tell you what the A is for.
I thought they were going to explain that or something.
Yeah, like a plot
we
point.
can pretend it's Alan. James Allen Hook.
Alan Steve.
All right.
James Allen Steve Hook.
So, they call the cops about what's happened. And one of the police inspectors is Phil Collins.
He is, yes.
Which I think is pretty funny.
Phil Collins. Here's another cameo we got.
Right?
And Phil Collins is like, well, maybe it's just a prank. And they're like, our fucking kids are not here anymore. And he's like, yeah, but because
but your family's famous, so somebody might have just taken them as like a joke.
Yeah.
Like, what?
But they're really kidnapped. Yeah, but they might be joking about really kidnapping them.
So let's wait a few days. We'll see whether or not this is kind of like a prank. And
even though we probably have no suspects because they just disappeared out the window.
Right.
So, what's going on?
He apparently, in an interview, said that Dustin Hoffman showed up 2 months early to the shoot before they were anywhere, weeks before they were ready to start shooting his portion of the movie, just so that he could hang around the sets and get into the mood of being there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would think that's stupid if it was a lesser actor.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing.
If that was Jared Leto, I'd be like, shut up.
Jared Leto, dude.
I don't know what. I'm not saying he's a great actor, but I don't know what to think about Leto. I don't know whether to think it's obnoxious or if he's really trying to seriously be an actor and it's just not working for him. Because you're right. If somebody told me that it was Daniel Day-Lewis, I'd be like, absolutely, that makes total sense. The guy's fucking brilliant. He wants to be there. But somehow if you say it was Jared Leto, it's like, oh, that motherfucker. Or if you say a Shia LaBeouf, fucking fake bastard, hanging around on the street like he did with the fucking Fury movie, the tank. He was driving all the co-stars nuts because he stank, wouldn't shower for the whole thing. And I don't know, the Leto I'm confused about. Part of me really believes that Leto really does legitimately want to be a good actor. He's just not getting it.
I think he can be. He is.
Yeah, you're
he's
right.
Good at times.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
When I hear his stories, I'm like, why are you doing this? Anyway, the kids are gone, and Peter handles it exactly how I would handle the situation. He gets blackout drunk.
My kids are missing. Find me a bottle of scotch.
Yeah, I mean, he starts drinking alone, which is the best kind of drinking, in my opinion. He's drinking whiskey neat,
Solo anxiety-driven drinking is the best kind.
Hey, I spent a lot of years of my life doing that, okay?
Right? Oh, totally, absolutely.
But your kids weren't missing.
No, it's bad. Don't do it. So he's drinking in the room, and he's really stressed out. And suddenly he sees something in the distance coming towards him from outside into the house. Alan, why don't you tell us what goes on here?
Oh, okay. So he goes out into the balcony, and while he's drinking and brooding or whatever, that's when he sees the little light come towards him, and it's Tink. It's the pixie.
That's right.
Yeah, she just comes barging in and kind of shows up. She surprises him. He's wondering what's going on. He refuses to believe it. He thinks he's hallucinating. He makes several remarks this isn't real. I've gone off the deep end. I've broken down. There's no such thing as flying pixie fairies.
Flying Julia Roberts shows up. He says she has nice legs.
All right. You already flirt with this thing that's 6 inches tall.
Yeah, what do you expect to happen? What in best case scenario? How's that going to play out?
Literally the only woman on earth who your penis is legitimately too big for.
Well, don't worry, that gets addressed later.
My last girlfriend said it was huge. Who was that? Well, Tinkerbell, but
Don't forget though that
9 inches long.
Later Tinkerbell becomes human sized.
She does, yes.
So that brings up a whole nother weird.
That really goes somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But for now, she's still a fairy. We don't know if she can do that or.
And Robin Williams, does he believe in fairies, Steve? I don't remember.
No, he does not believe in fairies.
Okay, that's it.
I do not believe in fairies!
Motherfucker, you're looking at one. You're looking at one.
It's just till dawn. I don't want to hear it was fuck, and no one believes in vampires, because I don't fucking believe in vampires, but what I fucking saw was vampires.
That's right. I know what I saw.
Well, he mixed up his LSD and liquor bottles.
Clearly.
Dude, can you imagine swigging that much liquid LSD? You'd be dead.
You'd
Do
see
you remember
fairies.
the movie Good Time?
Oh, yeah.
When they go and they take over that amusement park and the security guard, they just like pour that liquid acid.
Yeah, they just dump it like,
Dude, that would be a really, really unpleasant night in the
And he
hospital.
wakes up to getting like handcuffed.
Right?
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, fuck. God, can you imagine getting dosed with that much at once? Oh, fuck, dude.
If you do, dumb question, can you, I mean, you can die, but like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you just trip really hard or would you just die?
Well, you could definitely die. Whether or not you would, that's too open-ended to answer. It depends on too many specifics, but
You could also
absolutely
lose
die.
your
Just
mind.
literally,
Yeah, I mean, that's
literally
the
like just
thing.
go crazy.
And-
You can never come out of it.
Fuck.
Potentially, yeah.
Really
That's
large
scary.
doses of hallucinogen. You're fucking with your brain.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately. You're fucking with it. And even if there are no after effects, the trip itself is going to be hours long and extremely unpleasant.
Yeah,
like,
Jesus.
it's not good.
I mean, I don't mean to quote SLC Punk too much, but that shit, man, it fucking stays in your spine, man.
One of Matthew Lord's best.
Absolutely.
Oh, God, I like that movie.
Well,
Anyway.
Robin Williams is seeing fairies. He might have done LSD. He didn't, though.
Super strong fairies, too, because Tinkerbell just basically knocks him on his ass and is like, you know what, motherfucker? You're coming to Neverland right now. And she just, like, drags his ass.
Yeah, that scene ends with him being basically kidnapped by Tinkerbell.
For the second time in his life.
And she like
There's a
wraps
recurring theme.
wraps him in a sheet and just like flies him out the window.
The point is, if Tinkerbell wants you to be in Neverland, your ass is going to end up in Neverland.
She ain't messing around. Yeah.
He's like, listen, anyone asks, you ran away again.
Right? Like, look, motherfucker, I kidnap babies. Literally.
So his kids got kidnapped by Hook or some mysterious force we don't know about yet.
It kind of does beg the question, how did the rest of those kids get to Neverland? Like, she must have kidnapped all of them.
Yeah, she did.
Like,
This is a dark movie.
right? One of them at one point's like, I miss my mother. It's like, yo, bro, your mother's been dead for 70 years. Like, you've been here for decades.
Yeah, you're wearing, like, old-timey, like, fucking,
Right.
like, British, like, Oliver Twist
Right.
clothes, bro. Like,
You're
you've been here for a long time.
You're still 12, but if your mother were alive, she'd be 122. Like, there's no way.
Like an industrial Europe or
Right.
like industrial
Oh, yeah, these
revolution.
kids are all from different eras, you can tell.
But because this chick, like, because that fairy kidnapped all of you and brought you here, you might want to think about whether or not maybe you murder her. But
And this is all
Can't
a
fuck with Tink. She's super strong.
this is
guess
all
so.
a PG movie. It gets a lot darker, but this is all PG.
It
isn't
is. I mean, I've seen darker movies with lesser ratings. I think Willow is rated G. So
Is
keep
it
that
really?
one. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
wow, I like Willow, but
super
that's
dark?
surprising.
Yeah, they used some of the same effects that they used in this movie in Willow, but
Right.
they kind of perfected them, namely with Tinkerbell. They use that same effect
Yeah.
on the person who leads the brownies or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, so Peter gets taken to Neverland, and this is kind of where we enter the very long second act. The second act of this movie is quite heavy, but he's left the real world and he's in Neverland now. So he wakes up. She just dropped his ass off right in Piratesville, man, which is fucked up.
He's like, why would you do that?
And she just kind of just drops him like
She's
a
like,
thud.
time for some tough love, kid.
Yo, the dude who
Yeah.
kidnapped your kids and who wants to murder you lives like right over there. So here's where I'm going to drop you.
He's like, you want your kids? Go get him, motherfucker. Good luck, bitch. No, but she's like, all right. She helps him get a pirate disguise. First, he gets accosted, and, you know, he can't fight. He's just like a businessman that's never been in a fight.
He's a real estate attorney.
Yeah, he's a real estate attorney. He's become a pirate.
One of the guys trying to steal his shoes is Jimmy Buffett.
Wait, when you put it like that though, you just nailed a good point. She dropped him off there, and then she's helping him get a disguise. It's like, why is she helping him when she created this mess?
I mean, I can defend this. I think it's that she's like really trying to solidify, like, this shit's real. There's Captain Hook.
Okay,
There's
okay.
your kids. This motherfucker's got him. He's a pirate. Look at him. You know? It's like that kind of thing. But one of the things that I glossed over, and I mean, this probably isn't news to anyone except for maybe Alan. There's a moment when Tinkerbell is carrying Peter Pan out of London, and her dust kind of like trickles down to a couple people that are kissing on a bridge,
Yeah.
and they start floating up into the air. Steve, who are they?
It's George Lucas and Carrie Fisher.
Indeed it is. So the people that you only see from very far away, the two actors are George Lucas and Carrie Fisher kissing. It's kind of weird to think about, actually.
And she apparently did some uncredited rewrite work on the script. I do not know what. I have no idea which scenes were hers.
I don't know what specific scenes, but I know what she rewrote, and that was Tinkerbell's dialogue.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway, so Alan, tell us about what does Peter see? What are they like? He's taken into a whole new world here, and it's wild. Like, what is going on when Peter's dropped off?
It's basically pirates. They're your stereotypical pirates. They're all dirty. They all have swords. They're all fighting. They're all drinking. They're all rugged. It's a pirate's life for me. You know, they're like very piratey in that sense.
Like fun pirates. Yeah, for sure.
They all have swords, and they're all just kind of
Disney
rambunctious.
pirates.
Yeah, and they're all just crazy. They're pirates.
This was the movie that hooked me, pun intended, as a kid. Dude, that set is fantastic. The Lost Boys little village as well. Like, but just the docks, the pirate ships, and the ship itself that Hook and his crew live on. It's all fucking fantastic. I mean that sincerely. Like,
Yeah, it's
huge
amazing.
money.
I mean, the detail in this place is insane. Just like everything, like the ropes, the ships, how everything's tied together.
All the barrels and just the little touches. Yeah.
Hook's ship had the big skeleton on the front.
Yeah, one end
Yeah.
it has a skeleton, and on the other end it has like a skull is like his room, like
Yeah.
one end of the ship. So it's pretty neat. I agree with Steve. Like I love this set, like sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I love it.
Massive.
It's so good, and it feels like so real. And that's what's great about a movie like this.
Yeah.
Is that they're not in a green screen place with all this like fake shit in the background. Like there was so much effort, and it makes it feel more magical.
I mean, and on that note, I just want to make note of the fact that Julia Roberts had to film most of her stuff separately in front of a green screen, and then she got composited into the rest of the movie. And considering the fact that this was 91, that effect came off really, really well.
Yeah.
Really well. Almost perfect.
Yeah, they got the lighting well, so it didn't look out of place.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice the hookers?
Which hookers?
There's hookers.
Oh,
in
that's
Pirates
right.
now.
Absolutely.
They're like
Yeah.
pretty like trashy looking like women that like want to fuck Smee.
Dude,
'cause
they're
he's supposed to be
pirates, man.
captain.
That's what they do. In this PG movie.
Yep.
Yep.
So, speaking of, Bob Hoskins and Dustin Hoffman, during rehearsals at one point, apparently came to the conclusion that Hook and Smee are a gay couple, an unspoken gay couple.
Oh, shit.
And decided to play the parts as if that were the case. And I think, regardless of whether or not any of us agrees with the theory, it is kind of an interesting way of looking at that relationship.
Wow.
Yeah.
They probably got that from the cartoon, right?
I guess so,
Wait, were
yeah.
they gay in the cartoon?
No, but like, you know, they're a lot more flamboyant and foppish and like,
Yeah.
I think it could be perceived that way. They never say it.
Right, I mean, and that's one of those things. It's like they're not like, it doesn't get mentioned. They're not like quote unquote open about it. It's just that's what it is.
But when
Yeah,
you put it like that, like, okay, I'm not saying whether that's true or not, but
Yeah.
they never really did anything, so I never got that vibe because what
No,
was supposed to give that vibe away?
Alan, you got to see them fucking, right? That's
right. There's no dick involved.
until you
I didn't see any
penetration.
penises.
Yeah.
No one said I love you while looking into their eyes. but seriously though, what's supposed to? I didn't see anything like that. It was a little awkward, but nothing really.
I don't know. Smee did things that like my wife does for me.
That's the thing. I
Yeah.
mean,
But she
one
steals
of
your
the
treasure?
things I can't remember which of the
She steals my fucking treasure.
I can't remember which of the two of them was the one who said it, whether it was Hoffman or Hoskins, but one of them said that what gave one of the things that gave both of them that feeling was how devoted they, like Smee particularly clearly is to Hook, and that level of like implied intimacy in like non-sexual intimacy is kind of what led them to that conclusion.
Yeah, he's doing
Like-
things. He's like, you know, he's going up to him and he's like fixing his mustache and he's like, you know, straightening
Yeah.
his hair. He's like a lot of hands-on stuff. with it.
Right.
It's the kind of like, you know, like the stuff your wife would do.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There is one weird scene. I just realized it now that we're talking about it. When he takes off his shoes, like Hook sits down
Yeah.
and like he like
Gives
takes
him a
off
foot
his shoes
massage.
and gives him like a foot massage. That's weird. I forgot about
what's
that.
weird about it?
Just taking off another dude's shoes. Hey,
Well, they're gay.
relax. Put your feet out. Let me take off your shoes.
They can't be gay, Alan. Say it.
They haven't had sex on screen, so.
Hey, this is a PG movie.
All right, send us the fanfic, everyone. Send it.
Oh my
I'll
God.
make sure Alan sees it. So what happens with Peter is he gets a pirate disguise and he goes amongst the other pirates, and we see I guess Hook starting his day where he comes in, he greets all his pirates and he says, "All right, guys, guess what I did last night? I went into the other world and I kidnapped Peter Pan's children." And they're like, "Yeah." And he shows them, and they're like, they're in a net, and he's like, basically sucking himself off. He's like, "I'm badass. I did it. I'm so cool." But he's like, "But one of you didn't believe me. Someone here in this fucking group of pirates doesn't belong." And yeah, as the audience, you're like, "Oh shit." He knows inherently that Peter is here as a spy. And he's pointing to someone, and he walks up to him, and you think it's Peter, but it's the person standing right next to Peter. What's going on here, Steve?
The character's name is Gutless, but Hook accuses him of betting against he accuses this other pirate of betting against his ability to actually procure Pan's kids and bring them back. And he's like, "You didn't believe in me, did you? You bet against me." And this other pirate begrudgingly agrees, and he ends up getting dragged to a box, sort of a coffin-shaped box.
The boo box. The boo box.
That they seal him inside of and then drop live scorpions into. But this ostensibly male pirate was not played by a man. Did you know that?
I did.
You did know that.
I did not.
That was Glenn Close under all that makeup.
That looked like a man.
Yeah, in a 2-minute long scene. Why you get Glenn Close to dress up like a man for a 2-minute long scene, I'm not sure. But there you go.
Very good summary, Steve, but you glossed over one very important and very odd point, is that it's called the Boo Boo Box.
Oh, that's right, the Boo Box.
Or Boo Box or Boo Boo Box?
It's the Boo Box.
Boo Box.
Boo Box.
Oh, that's...
No, not that. No.
Not to be confused with Blueberry cereal.
That was...
different thing.
Oh, okay.
That was very odd and very kind of... For how dark that was when they put the scorpions in. They always lock them in a box and put the scorpions in. That seemed like a very... I don't even want to say childish. Just seemed like an odd name for such a dark thing. The Boo Box.
Well, the thing is, here's the way it pays off, right? So he's like, the Boo Box, and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, that doesn't sound so bad. And then it's horrifying.
Yeah.
So that's the kicker. So you see it, and the name doesn't sound too bad, but when you see them drop scorpions in this fucking box, that still fucks with me a little bit.
PG
You see
movie.
something like this in a movie. Every time you see torture in a movie, you got to put your mind in their shoes, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that is just fucked up.
And it's a small box. You obviously can't move. It's just jam them in there.
And then everyone outside just fucking mocks you.
Oh, look at that guy.
Yeah,
He's
it's
in
so
the box.
He's getting scorpioned.
It's one thing to be tortured, but it's another thing to be made fun of by a crowd while you're being tortured.
Right.
That's too much. I can take the torture, but don't laugh at me.
I'm sensitive.
Right before this all happens, before Hook has come out, when Robin Williams is just getting into the crowd, Smee comes out and he says, "Good morning, Neverland."
Good morning, Neverland.
And
Good morning, Neverland.
You got it.
Is that Vietnam?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a reference to Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams. So there you go.
It's funny because, I do know that, but I've heard this first. So this is the thing that, sticks in my mind.
Right.
This version of it, for sure.
I have a question. Do they ever explain, or were they supposed to explain, why Hook is in charge? They don't really give much background on why Hook's the main.
Nah, even in the first
Captain,
one, he's
he's
already at the captain phase.
He's just that guy.
Yeah.
They don't explain how he got there, what his motivations are.
It's just usually like anything else. The guy that's in charge is either the smartest, the strongest, or both. And he, I think, is the best sword fighter and the smartest, clearly. Everyone else is a fucking moron.
Right. You figure-
underling pirates.
Right. Probably rose his way through the ranks up to captain.
And they explain, if you're interested, Hook has his backstory in that Hugh Jackman, that weird Peter Pan movie, where they do Nirvana songs and shit.
Yeah.
That's he was a guy in the real world, and somehow he like Peter Pan fucked him over, and then he went, or I may be confusing it with a show. I don't know.
He lost the hand in real life.
Yeah, in the movie they mentioned the hand, so they mentioned that he got his hand cut off.
Well, I mean, that's something they touch on in the old animated film, that Peter cut his hand off and fed it to this gigantic crocodile.
Pretty dark.
For the remainder of the film, that crocodile is following Captain Hook around, trying to eat him. And at some point, the crocodile had swallowed a huge clock. So anytime they heard a ticking sound approaching, they knew it was this massive, 50-foot long crocodile. And because it ate Hook's hand and almost ate his whole body, as you're seeing in the animated film toward the end where Hook narrowly avoids being swallowed whole by this thing. So now he hates the sound of clocks. Cannot stand the sound of clocks.
He's got PTSD with it, for sure. He's got, severe PTSD with ticking sounds.
Right? Because this fucking 50-foot crocodile is trying to eat his ass.
And this 50-foot crocodile is featured in the pirate, island.
And that's the part that I don't remember the second half of the animated film that much, but I don't remember them putting the crocodile into a clock tower.
No, they didn't in that film. I guess it's implied it happened between
the two, yeah.
Sometime after Peter left, he did best the crocodile. He captured him, I guess killed him, and just dried him out and stuck him up in the middle of their town.
Ends up getting him anyway.
This makes me all very unsure, and while I was watching it, I was unsure what the rules are on, life and death. Everyone can just die in this Neverland. There's no...
It's like you're immortal unless something external kills you.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
The kids can stab you to death, but otherwise you don't really die.
You definitely don't die of old age in Neverland.
Yeah.
Okay, but...
Because Hook would have to be over 100 as well.
But you can still cut off people's hands and get stabbed and die.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. You can die of injury.
You can go out like Rufio.
Yeah. Oh, that's the whole thing.
So we see Jack and Maggie, and Peter reveals that those are his kids. He sees them and immediately just blows his cover, and he's like, those are my kids. And he goes up to Hook and he's like, what do I got to do to get him back? And Hook's like, who the fuck are you? And then that's when he says, I'm Peter. And Hook realizes, oh shit, you're Peter Pan. And he's completely incredulous. He does not believe that this guy, this old businessman that's pretty out of weight, that looks like Robin Williams, is the spunky kid that used to kick his ass all the time. So,
Mr. Hook, I want those kids out of that net in less than 1 minute, or you better get an attorney and hope to God he's better than me.
Who are you?
I'm Peter Panning, attorney at law. Those are my children, and I want them back, please.
Those are your...
children.
These are your children?
Yes, they are.
And you're...
Peter?
You're Peter?
Yes.
You're Peter?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
You're Peter?
Yes. Is there an echo in here? Yes,
My great and worthy opponent?
Yes.
No! Smee! Who is this imposter?
Peter flogging flying pain!
he says, all right, well, if you're Peter Pan, prove it. Fly up to the kids, just touch their hand. If you could do that, I'll let them go, and it's just me and you. And obviously he can't do that, so he's unsuccessful here. And Hook is quite dismayed. Hook's whole thing is he wants to have this one last battle with Peter Pan. He never got a chance to finish the feud, and he just wants what he calls his war.
I did actually I liked this scene just because of how he said dismissive he was. It was really believable. I liked how he just couldn't believe this whole big thing he's been about is oh, here's Peter Pan finally. And he just, like you said, he's no, it's not. And he was just being a dick. He's get out of here. You're not Peter Pan.
I like when he says, come on, Peter, pick up your weapon. And Peter pulls out his checkbook and he's like, all right, how much? and Hook just pulls out his gun and he shoots a hole through his checkbook and it shoots the guy behind him and the guy just falls down dead.
That guy's dead?
Yeah,
PG
it's
movie.
something out of a cartoon. I love it.
We got a death already.
We didn't even discuss, I don't want to spend more than a second mentioning it, but they treat Hook like sort of an emperor. Before you see him, there's this long shot, a minute and a half of Smee walking around. He gets Hook's hook sharpened at the blacksmith and then he puts it on a pillow. And he walks it through the village to the boat and takes it to Hook's cabin and fits it on his hand. And there's this moment where he literally fits the hook onto Hook's arm, but while he's walking, all the men around him are yelling bring us the hook, bring us the hook. And then it's chanting for the emperor. And when they shot the moment where Smee is putting the hook on his arm, I guess they could have bought more of the bulbs, but Spielberg was insistent that they get it once in one shot because there are these flashes of colored light that go along with the hook mounting onto the arm. And those flashes came from these single-use bulbs that literally just burn themselves up the moment they're turned on. You get like a 2-second flash out of them and they are useless beyond that. So Spielberg's like, we only bought like one set of the bulbs for whatever reason. So like we have to get this once.
The budget is only $70 million, guys. Right. It's 1991.
Right. But yeah, there's this crazy like cult of personality. So when he tells everyone that he's got this like war brewing and he's got Pan's kids, he's going to bring the Pan back and they're going to murder him, everyone's just immediately like, fuck yeah, let's do this.
The pirates really have nothing to live for except for the hope of like a good fight.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all they want,
It's
really.
kind of like Vikings.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, 2 times or several times throughout the rest of the movie, Hook doesn't go down the stairs unless Smee rolls out the carpet.
Yeah.
What was the point of that? He's a fucking pirate.
It's just a gag.
Just a gag, like he's too good, or he's like so fucking beyond everyone. Like roll out the carpet, or I can't walk down the stairs.
They used to do that for royalty. They roll a carpet out for him.
I mean, I got it. It just seems so weird. It's like, why?
I like that. I like he's like so up his own ass that like he's like he wants the fucking carpet rolled out, even though it's like in this like really shitty pirate town.
Right? I mean, that's
like,
the thing.
Everyone's dirty as fuck.
He considers
Glenn Close
himself
is dressed like a man.
He considers himself royalty. That's the thing. You know, he gets all these people treating him like a king. They're chanting for him. He's like, no, I want that royal carpet rolled out.
Where like he can't walk down the stairs, like the carpet.
Right.
And the point when Peter's trying to rescue the kids, there's a deleted scene. This is one of the only deleted scenes I've ever seen. I saw it online. Captain Hook goes up to Peter and he says, you know, I've wanted more than anything to kill Peter Pan, but I guess you've done that for me, haven't you? And that's when he like walks away and he's like, just kill them all.
Right.
So like that moment happens right before that. And I actually kind of like that. Maybe it's just because I'm like thirsty for more content because I've been watching this movie for 30 years. And
Right.
like, I really want to see more. But yeah, I really like that. Like, you know, Peter Pan was this great thing that was the only one that stood a chance to me. And I wanted to kill him, but you fucked yourself over. Now you're a fucking weak ass bitch, and I'm going to make you walk the plank.
When you mention that, that's a whole nother problem I had with this movie is it felt almost hollow. There wasn't a lot of content, and I guess I mean fighting or a lot of like clashes or adversity. It was kind of hollow. Like nothing really happened.
I disagree. I think you are a fool.
Okay.
And I think you need Jesus in your life. Those are my 2 thoughts on that. No, I disagree wholeheartedly for sure, but it might be my attachment to it. I really have an emotional attachment to this that's very deep. I was very moved by a lot of scenes that you guys probably didn't blink an eye at. So.
Well, no, you know what though? I tend to agree with you. Like, cause the film is driven to the climax. Like the action moments is the final fight. Like everything up to that point is arc. And I think that's one of the reasons I like this movie as much as I do. I will concede, like yourself, I have a lot of sentimental attachment to this movie, and maybe that jades my vision of it a little bit. But one of the things I've always thought made it stand apart from other films based at a young audience is that it actually has an arc to it. A lot of these movies, it's like 85 minutes long. You get like a 35-minute introduction, and then here's the end fight.
Now we're talking.
You know, it's like it's cool. And if you're making movies for 8-year-olds, like that's a great.
If it's Tokyo Drift, it's fine.
Right? You know, but with this one, it's more like no, this character is actually going to have to go through some growth to like get to that last fight. So
speaking of which, that's kind of where it leads next because Tink says to Hook, she's like, "Look. Yeah, you can kill them right now, but you'll never get what you want. You'll basically never be happy." She's like, "You want your war or not? I'll get him to be Peter Pan again. Just give me a little bit of time." And he kind of reluctantly agrees. They settle on 3 days. They're going to have their official war. And Hook relays that to the pirates and they all celebrate. But in their stupidity, one of them accidentally knocks Peter off the ship because he was walking the plank into the water and he's like tied up. So he's just like, he's like done. Like no one's going to go in to rescue him or anything. They're just like, oops. All right, so much for that shit. So Peter gets knocked into the water. But Alan, do you remember what happens when he's in the water?
Yeah, he gets knocked in the water. That's also I thought it was kind of dark, whether it was meant to be or not, because his hands are tied behind his back. He's basically going to drown. That's like my nightmare. he got jumped in the ocean.
Noted.
Without being able to swim, so he's basically going to drown. That's terrible. But while he's drowning, or before he can drown, a mermaid shows up. And she has blue hair She's kind of like this pretty mermaid. And she gives him this kiss to give him air to save him. And while she does that, another one comes with green hair. And then there's a third one with yellow hair, and this whole like weird scene with the mermaids.
Yeah, they like are blowing like air into his mouth. Did you think it was gonna escalate? Did you think like one of them was gonna like start unbuttoning his like tux? Like,
it was definitely going that way. I was like, if the longer it lasted, I was like, okay, where is this going? He's got 3 of these like beautiful mermaid women.
yeah, it was a 40-minute scene that they cut down to 20 seconds.
Turns out it's like the
Director's cut.
longest love scene in cinematic history, and they couldn't even use it. It's like, Steven, why did you shoot this? I don't know.
Why do you think Robin Williams shaved his chest?
Well, the scene after that, it's kind of a weird transition because you see all the mermaids, you get that whole scene, but the next scene is him being like hoisted up on a shell, like out of the water.
There's a very quick thing that I missed a lot as a kid. In fact, I probably didn't notice it until I seen the movie 30 times. Very quickly, they put him, the mermaids put him in this giant shell. So
I missed that.
It's like their mechanism.
Okay.
Yeah, so they put him in the shell. I don't know how it operates, obviously, but it basically takes Peter up to the realm of the Lost Boys.
Okay.
Now, Steve, what can you tell me about the realm of the Lost Boys? Because I love it as much as you, but I think you're more articulate than me.
The whole thing is fantastic. I was actually running on the screen behind us. I was literally just admiring some of the background. It's this kind of island. It's not supposed to be a huge island, but it's just an utterly massive set. It's got rock outcroppings and forests, and they've got this little village set up for themselves amongst the trees with this huge rail system that you can ride these kind of sailboards around on wheels, and they've got tables set up for themselves and campfires and these little kind of hovels and caves and tree trunks that they live inside of, and the whole thing is just so detailed. It really is like a child's like a little boy's perfect vision of this like outdoor world that you get to enjoy and live in, and it's pretty amazing. I think.
It's a dream come true for a kid. It
Right.
really is. It's what I was hoping. You know, Disneyland.
Yeah.
How they have that island.
Yeah.
It's what I was hoping would be there when I went as a kid.
Yeah.
Tom Sawyer's Island.
Right.
I took a raft out there, I think once.
Right.
And this is what I thought would be there, but not quite.
I used to like the Swiss Family Robinson house. I think that was on the island.
I'm not sure.
But
It was
anyway,
so
yeah.
long ago.
Right?
What do you think about the Lost Boys' little?
Alan hates it. He's like, it was lame.
No, I don't hate it. It was cool. I mean, I can't say you guys pretty much nailed it. That's what it was. I did like the little tree houses, or I always thought the tree houses were cool, or the huts they had.
Yeah.
Because like each boy had like own little room hut house thing. So I always liked that. And they had like the wooden walkways around the trees, and I thought the setup was pretty cool.
There's all kinds of like little traps and stuff, and Peter basically arrives, and all the Lost Boys are notified that someone's there, that it's potentially Peter Pan, and they all surround him, and they see him, and they're like, "Wait, who's this old fucking guy? He's not Peter Pan." So they basically just proceed to like fuck with him as much as they possibly can. They start like chasing him around. They're like shooting him with their little like plunger arrows, shooting him in the balls, like throwing paint at him. These kids, I think they will kill a guy, but they're more interested in just like fucking around and being kids. So like they're basically playing tag with Peter, like an elongated game of tag, until Rufio shows up, like fucking an acrobat.
That's kind of almost psychotic in a way. It's like they're just fucking with him, and whenever they decide to kill him, they might. It's like when my cat plays with a mouse. It's kind of pawing it, but any second it could just kill it, and it might do it. You never know. It's like terrifying. Are these kids gonna kill me, or they're just gonna keep fucking with me? Like any second they could just kill him.
Rufio is the leader of this group, and he's the more serious one of the bunch. He is fucking cool. I still think he's cool. I know he's
goofy cool.
Yeah, he's goofy cool, man. Steve, have you ever seen the independent film Rufio? It's like 20 minutes long.
I don't know that one.
Dante Bosco's actually in it.
Is he really?
He plays, because Rufio's played by a little kid. He plays Rufio's like principal in his like elementary school or whatever. It's about how Rufio got to Neverland.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's cute.
Where did the idea of his hair come from?
The 90s.
It was just that time. I mean, was that any special story or anything? That's how they did
I
it.
feel like that's just the way it goes back then.
Just
bro.
like that looks
Right.
cool. Yeah.
91.
It only would work in the early 90s.
Right.
It's like in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, like how some kids have some like really goofy, like exploited style mohawks. Yeah, there's really like long ones.
Yeah, it's just a product with time.
Yeah. But, I mean, they're all fucking with Peter, chasing him around. They, like, chasing him on their skateboards. They got, like, half pipes and, like, mini ramps and shit. They got, like, a basketball court against, like, a quarter pipe. It's pretty sick.
And Rufio can ride his sailboard thing on this, like, elevated rail system around the entire encampment. It's crazy.
It's like a sail skateboard roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's badass.
It
is. Yeah.
It's like on rails, but it has like a wind sail, and it's like a skateboard.
I mean, they know what they were doing. They put this on screen. Every kid is supposed to say, I want to ride that. And we all did. All of us said that shit.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely, I did. The first thing I thought is, I want to build one of those for myself.
Dude, imagine being a millionaire. I'd still do it, man. There's two things I want. I want the Foot Clan's hideout, and I want this place.
Oh, God, yeah. Dude, if I could recreate both the Ninja Turtles, like, subway home and the Lost Boys encampment from this, I'd be so happy.
Yeah, here's the thing, too, about, as a tangent note, the Foot Clan, their hideout in the first movie, the Ninja Turtles would actually like that place.
It's true.
It's all arcade games and skateboard ramps.
Dude, I'd like that place.
Yeah.
And Rufio and the gang have their catchphrase, Bangarang.
Bangarang, I love it.
Bangarang.
Do you know what Bangarang means, Alan?
Nope.
Did you get, like, the idea of Bangarang, though, from watching this?
Honestly, when you ask me now, no. I mean, I was watching it, the word, what is it? It's kind of just like assemble or like get together.
It's like, you know, like Bill and Ted's Station?
Wait,
like
no?
Station. You know?
It's actually Jamaican slang, to my understanding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and in
Wait, so
Jamaica, it
what is
literally means to make a disturbance or to, like, rile shit up.
Yeah, let's get crazy.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's basically let's get crazy. Gonna go Bangarang,
this
man.
movie ruined that shit for Jamaicans?
Probably.
Then Cool Runnings came out 2 years later, and they're like, all right, God damn it.
Nobody can say Bangarang. That Rufio kid's all over it.
Enough of this horse shit. But basically Rufio says, like, all right, enough fucking around. Sorry, old man, you gotta die. Right?
Yeah, Rufio's not messing around.
No, he's very serious. He doesn't want to lose his position as, like, their leader, as the new Pan.
Yeah, Pan is like Caesar or Kaiser or Emperor in this context. Like, the Pan is the one who leads the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
That also leads to another point that gets a little dark, which they barely touch on, is that he just wants to be the next Pan. It's all, like, jealousy or fear of losing power. He's, like, wants the power. He wants to be in control.
Right. And
that's
Rufio
dark.
is cool, but he's kind of, like, lost his way, I think, as far as the kids go. Because they all have this, like, innocence and, like, they want to have this, like, sense of joy. And Rufio and some of the other kids, some of the older kids that have his back that don't actually speak, you can tell they're kind of, like, getting a little bit more grumpy, I guess is the word for it.
Yeah.
Maybe they become pirates in Neverland. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe kids get older and become pirates.
I thought the idea was the kids never get older at all.
Oh, okay. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously they've all survived as children for decades, or at least they're aging very, very, very slowly. But
to a certain point, they stop.
Because Peter's whole thing was literally, I never want to grow up. But I think that's one of the extra layers to the way this is set up, is that, like, Rufio is clearly supposed to be approximately 15 to 17.
Yeah.
Where most of the other kids are roughly like 8 to 12.
Yep.
And so he's the older kid. He's a little more world wise than the other ones are, and is older, and that he just kind of, he gets to lead things. You know, he knows the stuff the others don't, even though they're all most of them are probably older than he is on the basis of actual time passed.
And he's the best sword fighter.
Yeah, he's the best sword fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That brings up another question. Yeah, okay, they don't age, but aren't they still vulnerable to, like, strife or, like, internal, like, thinking? They're innocent forever? I mean, if they're their age, don't they get, like, pissed?
I guess that's the idea.
Isn't that what
brain
Rufio's
stays in
doing?
its younger state.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's my understanding as well. It's like they kind of retain their mental state. And it's a really interesting coin flip, because there's I don't want to take this to another movie, but, like, in Interview with the Vampire, in the movie version, it's a character played by Kirsten Dunst. In the book, that character was even younger. But the whole idea, she's this little girl that gets turned into a vampire and then spends eternity. Her brain is maturing, her personality is maturing, but her body never gets any older. And what you end up with is, like, an 80-year-old woman trapped in a 5-year-old girl's body, and it's a fucking nightmare for her, because she cannot do grown-up things despite the fact that she's been one for decades.
They go into that a little bit in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want to get too gross with it, but
right.
she has some concerns about she wants to be a woman. Yeah.
Right. And I think in this world, that's one of the reasons you kind of have to write it that way. Like they have to retain that childhood mental state. Because otherwise, if you've got the body of an 8-year-old, but you're 80 years old, like you're going to go fucking nuts. Like it's one thing you're trapped in the body of your 30-year-old self. At least then you're an adult. But like that's fucked up.
Well, that's what I mean. I would think like they would be older, so they'd be still young, but they'd be like fighting or just not always so peaceful or innocent.
Yeah.
Because like,
I mean,
they're just good kids.
Just good kids forever.
But something happens next which kind of changes the way things are going, because the Lost Boys are more or less with Rufio against Peter. There's a moment that I love a lot. A lot of it's the music.
Yeah.
And it's a moment when one of the little kids, he kind of like slowly walks up to Peter and starts examining his face to try to see like, is this an old version of the guy I knew? And he's like stretching out his face, and it's kind of like cute, and you're wondering what's going on. And he like stretches his face back and makes him like make a big smile, and he says like, "Oh, there you are, Peter." And the music swells in, and the music, I haven't talked about it yet. This is my favorite score for any movie with the exception of Empire Strikes Back. So it means a lot to me. I'm a big fan of John Williams, and man, when the score sweeps in, it's just so beautiful.
It's a very good score.
Yeah, I don't mean to get so sentimental, but
no,
man,
for sure.
It touches my heart.
It's very well timed too, because right as he says it, and it's like super deep, you know. This is like a pivotal part of the movie where he's like Peter Pan's back, or the kid realizes like it's him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they decide, they're like, all right, well, whether you're Peter Pan or not, we don't really know, but we're gonna help you get the kids, because I don't know, we got nothing else to do, I guess. So they decide to help him. Now, in the meanwhile, Hook is having a fucking existential crisis back on the ship. Alan, do you remember what Hook and Smee are going through? Like, Hook is like, what have I done? What the fuck's going on? Like, I should have just killed him.
Oh, yeah, I actually really like that part, because it's what I always say. He's realizing, like you just said, I should have killed him. It's exactly what I say. He's like, I should have never agreed to this. I should have just killed him when I had the chance. It could have been over. Like, that was the plan. Now he's like, oh, what have I done? I have to do this bullshit. And yeah, he's just kind of thinking about it.
Yeah, he's basically living in regret. And it's a really funny scene because you got him and Smee. Smee's like mucking about with a lot of like physical humor. Like he's going to get food for Hook while Hook's like giving his exposition. And like when Hook's not looking, he like takes a bite of like Hook's food. It's just a lot of little funny shit like that. But Steve, what goes on with Hook here? What does he talk about?
The conversation drifts into Hook, you know, just wondering, like, what's he doing? And is there any point to any of this? And, like, I could have just taken advantage of killing him when I had the opportunity. And Smee then decides maybe the best way to get back at Peter is to basically, like, steal his kids from him.
But before that, there's a bit of a crisis moment that I want to touch on. Hook basically says, you know what? I'm going to fucking off myself.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, no, yeah, I've had too much. I'll never accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm just going to kill myself.
Yeah, he picks up his little old-timey pirate pistol, and he just puts it to his head, and he's like, all right, Smee, it's been fun, but I'm going to kill myself now. Whatever you do, don't stop me. And Smee's just like an idiot. He's just like standing there. He's like, not again, man. Like, come on. Like,
yeah, here we go again.
Don't stop me.
Here we go again for a PG movie. This guy's about to fucking blow his brains out.
What are you, with the MPAA? Fuck off with that PG shit. Can't retroactively change the rating, Alan. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not trying to.
Kids were so soft.
I really don't even care. Like, I actually think it's fine. I just think it's odd, like, the discrepancy there, that this is supposed to be a PG movie and all this crazy dark shit happens.
Yeah, they should be more lenient these days, for sure. Yeah. But, yeah, Hook's basically like, I'm going to kill myself, but Smee stops him. You can tell Smee has, like, been through this 100 times, though. He's like...
oh, because they're lovers.
He's like, you're doing this shit again, bro. Like
come
the suicide
on,
thing.
Goodbye. Where you going? Are you getting dramatic?
Goodbye, Smee.
Captain, why don't we play your island? Eh? You know, all the little Indians and the soldiers and all the lost boys.
No stopping me this time, Smee. This is it. Don't make a move, Smee. Not a step. My finger's on the trigger. Don't try to stop me, Smee.
Oh, not again.
This is it. Don't try to stop me this time, Smee. Don't try to stop me this time, Smee. Don't you dare try to stop me this time, Smee. Try to stop me. Smee, you better get up off your ass. Get over here, Smee.
I'm coming.
Stop me! This is not a joke. I'm committing suicide.
But yeah, tell us about the plan that Smee has, Steve.
All right. So Smee basically comes up with this plan, like, what would really be the best revenge is if you could basically steal this dude's kids from each other, from him. Not just physically, but, like, make them yours, make them forget what it was even like to, well, first start by making them hate Peter and his wife, and then make them eventually just forget ever having had that life to begin with, which I think kind of an interesting touch, because, like, the implication at this point is if you spend too much time in the real world away from Neverland, you forget Neverland. But if you spend too much time in Neverland without going back to the real world, you forget the real world, or at least parts of it. And so he decides he's going to try to convince the kids that their parents were awful to them, and then ingratiate himself to the point where he can mold them to be the way he wants. But Peter's daughter's not having any of it. She contends that her parents are good people and that they love her and her brother. And the little boy, though, kind of starts responding. He's like, yeah, you know what? He didn't show up for any of my baseball games. And he's always too busy with business. And I hate his guts. And and this kind of starts warming up to Hook very slowly.
Yeah.
And you don't see a whole lot of the daughter. Again, until the climax. Like, there's never any reason to believe that they're really doing anything terrible to her, but it's kind of like she's somewhere else.
Yeah, the plan is clearly, like, failed on her, so they just focus on Jack.
Yeah.
So Jack can have 2 dads.
3 dads if you count Smee.
I was going to say, when Alan said 2 dads, I didn't even think about Peter. I assumed you meant Captain Hook and Smee.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because we already established they're gay, so they got to adopt a kid now.
He started with 0 father figures, and now he's got 3. It's rolling in father figures.
Oh, and Hook is really, like, as intelligent he is, even he's kind of an idiot sometimes, and he sort of takes Smee's idea and is like, oh yeah, that's a great idea that I had just now. Like, you made me think of that.
Yeah.
Like,
Meanwhile, Peter is back with the Lost Boys training. So they're trying to get him into shape. They're basically like having him work out
for like an afternoon.
Yeah, like all day. He's like benching the kids in this like weird like bench mechanism.
He's doing handstands and learning Spanish.
And jumping jacks. He's like basically just warming up or going
One
to
of
like
the kids
gym
is on his back like Yoda.
once. Yeah. This reminds me always, there's a really funny Family Guy skit where Brian has to take a test. So there's a whole skit where like it shows him working out. It's like supposed to parody Rocky.
Yeah, and
he's
it's specifically parodying Rocky 4.
Yeah. And then he does all this stuff and he's like in the snow working out and he's like, oh crap. He's like, all he did was work out for an afternoon.
Yeah, that is really good. Especially because they get that like workout like shot for shot with Rocky 4. It's really good, which I'm a big fan of. Yeah. It's good, right, Steve?
It's definitely not my least favorite Rocky sequel. Fucking Mr. T was a frightening ass motherfucker.
Rocky 3?
Yeah, that guy was legitimately if that dude had come into a ring angry with me, I would have left.
Clubber Lang,
dude. That guy, he was fucking scary when he wanted to be. Big dude. Yeah.
Very. Anyway, the one point in the training, they try to force Peter to fly. They basically hook him up to a fucking giant slingshot. They take off his shirt. I assume they shave his body because Robin Williams has no body hair in the scene.
They actually did shave his body for the production. That is an actual real production. And I don't really understand why they thought that was necessary.
Maybe him shirtless with all that hair is just too distracting.
It's true. He's like the Wolfman in real life, or was like the Wolfman in real life.
It's for aerodynamics. He has to be.
Oh, yeah.
When he gets launched, he has to fly faster.
And they paint a smiley face on his chest, and I always thought it was funny that they use his nipples as the eyes. Like, that always caught my eye as a kid.
Now, I didn't think about it while we were watching it, but why does he have to be shirtless when he flies?
Right?
I don't know.
Like, what's the point of that? Like, you can have his clothes on? Like, why is he shirtless in the first place?
For every time you fail, we remove another article of clothing.
I feel like that's the thing. It's like, why do they need to shave his body? And someone's like, well, because he's got to be shirtless. And then the next person was like, well, wait, why did he have to be shirtless?
It's these like dumb thought process. Like everyone's like, oh my god.
It was like they asked one question too few. The first person asked like, "Why do you need to be shaved?" And they took like, "Oh, because he needs to be shirtless."
Oh, that
And
makes sense.
No more follow up. You know, they didn't get to the why do you need to be shirtless, and that was really the most important question of all. Was why do you need to be shirtless?
Everyone just agreed with the first part. Like, oh, okay.
Oh, fine, that makes total sense.
God damn it.
Right.
Okay, I'll accept that because it's a production flaw and not a movie flaw.
That's the why moment. I didn't know if we were going to have one with Hook. I'm like, I wonder what the why moment with this movie's going to be. But it's like, why did Robin Williams need to be shirtless in that scene? That's what it is.
Next to all these kids, it's like weird. Oh, good.
Maybe the character decided. He's like, you kids don't mind if I take off my shirt, right?
Check out how buff I am.
Anyway, so later that night, after a hard day of training, it's time for dinner with the Lost Boys and Peter.
Oh, yeah.
They have a big feast. They set up a bunch of trays that are covered, presumably there's a lot of food inside. It's all steaming, and, Robin Williams says he's hungry. It's been a long day. He's traveled to Neverland. He's been kissed by mermaids. A lot has gone on for him. And when they reveal the food, there's nothing there. It's all these kids pretending to eat food, which is not only one of my favorite scenes, but it's one of my favorite songs in the score, is the banquet song.
It is a good one. Go ahead.
This part was a trip to me because right before this, I was thinking that exact thing. I was like, does he have to eat? I thought literally exactly that. And like you were saying, when they first show it, everything's covered and they're bringing all this food, and I got totally tricked on that. I did not expect it to be all
nice. I was hoping
fake.
that would work.
It did. I mean, I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, there it is.
Like, a lot of those covered dishes were steaming. Before,
Yeah.
It's like, if all the food was imaginary, then why were we able to see all the steam at first? That doesn't make any sense. And then also, like, I get the intent of the scene, brings imagination back, blah, 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 and I it didn't ruin the movie or anything, but, like, what are they actually eating?
All right.
Like, do the kids not need to eat?
This
in
is like the
Neverland?
whole argument with the movie for me. But if pretty much anything is questioned, it's the magic of Neverland.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I've ever been able to come up with, too, is somehow either A, they just don't really need to eat, or B, this imaginary food somehow is actually supplying them with nourishment because the magic
The
of
line
Neverland.
between imaginary and real basically doesn't exist in their world.
Yeah.
Photosynthesis.
Okay.
Fine, that too. Yeah.
Right.
It is pretty hot out there.
Yeah, the sun.
But yeah, they're all eating their imaginary food, and at one point, the kid, his name's Thud. He's the fat kid in the group. You
fat
gotta
kid.
have the fat kid.
Right? I mean, how is he that big when they're just eating imaginary, like, goop?
He had too many portions.
He has like a big piece of imaginary
He
food.
does. He's got, like, a quadruple stack, like, super mega burger.
He's eating before bed. He's eating too much imaginary food.
Right? So you use that 9-stack burger you had. Like, fuck.
It's pretty
dude.
funny. But Peter like starts complaining. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Come on." He's like, "I want 2 eggs. I want bacon. I want a cup of." He wants breakfast.
He wants steak and eggs, man.
I thought he said eggs and bacon.
He said eggs and a steak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean he wants real food, obviously, and he starts bitching about it. And Rufio's like, "Well, you can't have that. So shut the fuck up."
Right?
And it escalates into like a name calling contest,
See,
which
okay,
I love.
then to your point, why not? I mean, look, if you guys can imagine anything you want, then why are you imagining blue and yellow goop? Why can't he imagine steak and eggs?
You know what's
He just
weird
can't
about that?
imagine yet.
Is I'm 100% with Steve, and that's how I thought it was when they showed that. I thought, obviously, they were imagining everything, but like Steve said, I thought they could just imagine whatever they wanted, like hamburgers, pizza, like whatever they
I
wanted.
think when we actually see the food later, it's just like a combination of what they're all like
It's like
thinking.
everything.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. They're just
why there's so
imagining
much
food
shit.
they want.
But what do you guys think of the Rufio and Peter like name calling contest, the back and forth?
I bet you don't even have a 4th grade reading level.
Hemorrhoidal suck navel.
Well, maybe a 5th grade reading level.
Boil dripping, beef fart sniffing, bubble butt.
Someone has a severe caca mouth. Do you know that?
You are a fart factory. Slug slimed sack of rat guts and cat vomit. Cheesy scab picked pimple squeezing finger bandage. A week old maggot burger with everything on it and flies on the side.
Substitute chemistry teacher?
Come on, Rufio, hit him back.
Mong tongue.
Math tutor?
Pinhead.
Prison barber?
Mother lover.
Nearsighted gynecologist?
In your face, camel cake.
In your rear, cow derriere?
Lying, crying, spying, prying, ultra pig.
You lewd, crude, rude, bag of pre-chewed food dude?
That's the one moment in this film that, like, I can nitpick these other little things, but that's the one moment in the film that is not aged well for me. It's just like, it's goofy.
You don't like it?
I mean, I don't hate it, but it's just like, I don't find it funny the way I did when I was a kid.
I kind of
Really?
barely chuckled when you could tell he's just making up shit, or kind of devolved into like just him saying words.
Peter calls him a nearsighted gynecologist as an insult.
That one's funny.
That is fucking funny, bro.
PG movie. Here we go.
I had no idea what a
PG
gynecologist
rating.
was when I was 8. I was just like, that sounds funny.
I knew the word from this movie, and then when I learned what it was, the joke clicked. It was awesome.
Right?
Yeah. But, yeah, they have their name-calling contest, and how does it go from there?
Oh, in this scene, though, you forget that Peter actually comes... I forget how he realizes it, but then at the end of the scene, he realizes the food, or he can see all the food.
Yeah, because he wins the contest, and he fakes throwing food at Rufio, which means he's, like, engaging in the imagination part.
And then it kind of turns real.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, look, he got some of it back, or he can imagine like the other kids.
And I know you guys were talking shit on it, but I thought the food looked so fucking good. You have those memories as a kid when someone's having like a feast and you're like, the food looks so good. To me, it was always Hook.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it before this viewing, to be honest, because my memory of it was that. But then this time around, I don't know, there's this one thing that for some reason in my mind I always thought was a turkey. But I looked at it this time, and what it really looks like is like a 60-pound tarantula.
Yeah, it's like not a real animal.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck is that? It's like, what do they cook? It looks like it's got 8 or 9 legs.
They got a giant block of cheese with a face carved into it. It's like a fat face.
Right.
And then to just in that same frame is Thud's face, which is really funny to me. Anyway, this kind of like evolves into a playful food fight, right? So like they start throwing food at Peter, he starts throwing it at them. It kind of gets crazy. But at one point, Rufio, because he's mad because he lost the name-calling contest, he like throws a coconut at Peter, and Peter like grabs the sword and like cuts it in half. It's like, oh shit, he's starting to like get back in his true form.
It's got the skills.
He's got the skills.
With a Z.
It is 1991, so there would be a Z.
All right.
That was still acceptable.
Acceptable in the 90s.
There's kind of another like heartfelt moment where Peter, after the food fight, talks to Thud, the fat kid, and he kind of tries to like help him. He tells him, he Toodles, that guy, he used to be here, and I have his marbles, and he says, my happy thought is my mother. It's kind of like sad in a way, because you find out that all these kids, like, they really do miss their parents. They are still children after all.
I mean, it's especially sad when you think about it. We were talking about this earlier, so we don't need to tromp on it again too much, but like, clearly most, if not all of these kids have been there for decades and decades and decades. So there's a huge possibility their parents are dead. Like, I don't even mean that to be like funny. It's just like, they're probably dead. You've been here like 80 years.
So this goes back to everything I've been saying. Like, what is the point of this movie? Because it actually is pretty dark. And even if you're not dark, there's a lot of undertones to
Talking
this.
about like themes?
Yeah. So like, who is this? I know it's a kid's movie, but there's a lot of undertones here.
I mean, I think the overall theme, and we get this at the end, is mostly like, to never let that inner light inside of you, that like imagination that you get from being a kid, that like power or heart, like never let that fully fade away as time goes on, because it's it'll turn you into a shitty person.
But you can still miss your parents, and that's kind of weird.
They make such a hard point of it in the beginning to impart that Peter is totally lost context for what childhood is. Like, he really wants his kids to behave more like adults than like kids. He has very little tolerance for kid behavior. He gets mad at them for acting like children. And yeah, I agree with you. I think the whole, it's this transformative, like, to find your childhood again. And like, but yeah, definitely. It's got some sort of dark undertones to it. It's not quite a kid's movie in that regard, but I think there was a lot of that. There seemed to be this, and I liked it, this sentiment in the late 80s and early 90s where it's like, wait a second, we don't need to treat little kids quite that softly. Like, you don't want to confront them necessarily with like fully adult stuff, but you also think about movies like Little Monsters, You know, so a lot of quote unquote children's stuff in the very late 80s and early 90s was like, maybe we don't need to treat them like they're like handicapped. They're just kids.
Right.
This is before we got all politically correct.
Right.
Before 9/11.
Right.
Before we can't say anything. The good old days.
Is that what you blame 9/11?
Right.
Damn Al-Qaeda.
Even some of the animated stuff. It was like the especially the first, both of the Fievel movies. You have to deal with like abandonment and losing your parents and like death. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The first Fievel movie is like, someone was explaining this to me. I think it was my wife. That's like a lot about like Jews migrating.
Yeah, and trying to escape these pogroms in Russia because the character's family was supposed to be Russian,
right?
You know, and that they were being thrown in prisons just for being who they were, and people were leaving to try to get away from that. And
yeah, make kids' movies dark again,
right?
Yeah.
Escape from Oz. I hope we eventually get to Escape from Oz. Like, I love that movie. It's one of Fairuza Balk's first movies, and that movie's definitely sort of dark for a kid's film. Labyrinth was sort of dark for a kid's film. Dark Crystal was kind of dark for a kid's film.
Return to Oz is yeah, it's definitely dark.
Yeah.
It's an understatement. I mean, it was fucking creepy.
It was. I loved it.
And that's supposed to be a kid's movie?
Yeah. I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
As much as it's a movie at all.
Right.
I haven't seen that one.
So what happens next is Hook is growing closer to Jack. They kind of have a moment where like Hook basically explains to him like, look, your dad has let you down all these times. I've never let you down. I'm kind of here for you. And he puts on this big baseball game for him. And it's a baseball game where basically Jack's at the front and center. All the pirates are playing and Hook's kind of overlooking it. And maybe, Alan, you could tell us about this game and what Peter's doing there.
Oh, okay. So Peter shows up with the Lost Boys, and they're kind of stealthy. They're not noticed. But the whole point is they're going to steal Hook's hook. So he's sitting in his chair. He's like the main center, and he has his hook off, and Peter's going to just kind of take it while he's not looking and steal it. I don't know how that's going to help them defeat him, but
I guess to like give him like confidence and like,
okay.
Yeah, being able to take this guy on.
I mean, he could just get another hook.
Yeah,
it's kind of inconsequential in the long run. Like, we did it. We took his hook.
It's more symbolic for him. You know?
Well, yeah, when you put it like that. But so all the pirates somehow know how to play baseball too, or that's never explained. But
I guess Jack teaches them.
And they're all super about it. They're like, "Oh, this is the greatest game ever." So Jack's up to bat, and then this is another point in the movie, because this is where when Peter's trying to take the hook, he sees Jack playing baseball, and then he realizes like, oh, this is what I've been missing. Or it takes all of this for him to watch him playing baseball when he didn't watch him before in the real world.
Right.
So now he's like pausing. He's supposed to take the hook, but he's like hesitating. He's like, oh man, look, Jack's playing baseball. It makes me proud. And then he has like this like realization of what he's been missing.
Yeah, and Jack does well in the baseball game. He hits a home run, and everyone cheers him on, and Hook treats him like a son, and he tells him he's so proud of him and all this stuff, and Peter's just kind of looking at it like, oh, fuck, I am going to lose this kid to Captain Hook. That's fucked.
Point of order, they all know baseball. Haven't you guys ever heard of the Pittsburgh Pirates? I mean, come on.
It's my favorite team.
Right?
I played on the Pirates in Little League.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool.
I think I was on the Woodland Hills Angels like 4 separate times.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at sports as a kid, to the shock of no one. So,
but Pirates are good at baseball.
They are.
So he hits his home run. Peter basically like goes back, and he's kind of like sad at this point. He goes back to the Lost Boys hideout, and he's like, "All right, fuck this. I got to learn how to fly. I got to get my fucking mojo back." Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, it's weird to me they made a side trip to collect the hook and not get his kids back. But whatever. Anyway.
Peter discovers, like, the room that him and Wendy and John and Peter from, you know, the original movie and story, they used to, like, spend their time in. And when he enters this room and, you know, he's talking to Tink, he starts to slowly remember some things, like, from then. He remembers, like, where they used to sit and little things they used to do, and it all kind of starts coming back to him. And then he remembers his life before Neverland. Steve, do you want to tell us about his life before Neverland?
Well, I don't understand how the hell he remembers being an infant, for starters. That, like, there's a few little things in this movie.
How old is this baby? Like 3 months?
3 months, 4 months. He's still in a pram.
Like a baby.
Yeah,
right?
This baby can't even crawl or scoot yet.
It's a baby.
Right. tiny little kid, and like, so he's this tiny little baby. He's being pushed around the park by his mother. You get a scene where, like, for some reason, the carriage is like 50 feet from where his mother is sitting under a tree, and she's sitting on a bench telling some other woman about how Peter's going to grow up to go to all the best schools and is going to be successful. And then Peter starts talking about how he, like, ran away.
Yeah.
But what we see happening is his carriage rolling down a hill, and it's like, number one, you had nothing to do with that. Number two, how does a, like, 14-week-old baby run away? Like, you don't know where you are, let alone what running away is. You don't even really know that your mother's your mother. You just know she's the one that takes care of you. Like, fucking... And then Tinkerbell steals his ass out of the carriage, as she's prone to do, and takes him to Neverland. I mean, and this begs... Okay, so this does beg a question, going back to our conversation about how the aging works. My understanding of Neverland from the animated films and the story and blah, blah, when I was a kid is that once you're there, if you're a kid when you get there, you're a kid forever. You're just, for eternity, you remain a child. And you don't age unless you go back to the real world. But he gets taken to Neverland as a baby. And then when he's talking about his story, he talks about how he ended up going back to the real world to try to find his mother. And that he started viewing other people through their windows. And he met Wendy. And he went back to Wendy periodically. But he gets older during this period of time.
I think you age to a certain point.
Right, and then that begs the question that, like, okay, and if that's the case, then why is Rufio older than the other ones? Like,
maybe he's hit the cap.
Right? Maybe in the other, but the what's his name? Thud, the big one.
Yeah.
Why is Thud's clearly been there for like 75, 80 years.
Yeah, and then how long does that take? Like, what's the time frame? Like, why aren't they growing up too then?
And like, Rufio wasn't there when Peter was there. He didn't get there till afterwards. So Rufio must have been like older when he got brought. But then, like, so
he was like 8 when he got brought, according to that fan film.
Right. So Tinker's not always getting babies. Sometimes she takes older kids. And it's like, that kid's already old enough to know but you take an infant, they don't really know the difference once they've been there for a while. You take an 8-year-old, he's like, I remember my life before this.
It's funny too, because you're right. So Peter says he ran away, but it shows just his like stroller just like rolls down a hill. Like,
right.
He's a baby.
But you can tell like Tinkerbell told him that story later. She's like, yeah, you ran away.
Yeah, you were totally
like, so it's like mixed memories with like what really happened and what he was told.
Right.
She can't just say, I kidnapped you.
It's like, well, you do not remember being an infant. I'm sorry. Like, you don't.
But it turns into a really sweet thing because he remembers meeting Wendy for the first time.
Yeah.
This happens after he goes to visit his original family, and that his family kind of moved on because he'd been missing for 5-6 years. So he finds another window to go visit someone, and it's Wendy. And that's when they meet and they have their adventures from the original animated film.
Right.
And he comes back every so often. To him, it's probably like no time at all, but he comes back and she's like older every time. She's like Gwyneth Paltrow as a young girl. I think Gwyneth Paltrow older. I think Gwyneth Paltrow even older, and then Maggie Smith. Boom.
That was something.
Transition's hard there. She's old.
Right. The difference in the way time passes is something I didn't get for the first few years until I'd watched the movie 4 or 5 times when I was a little older. But you must be right, because we'll talk about it when we get there. But when he goes back with the kids at the end, the implication is that it's only been one night for his wife.
Oh.
At least that's what it seems to me. I could be misinterpreting, but it seems to me what they're implying is that only one night has passed for her, where several days passed for them in Neverland.
I thought the same thing, because at the end, she's in the room, and she's like shocked to see them, but yeah, it's been like one night or like a day or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
When Peter does go to see Wendy and she's old, that's actually when he decides to stay, when he's about 13.
Yeah.
He sees, because Wendy's old, she has a granddaughter. He sees her granddaughter and he's kind of like, I guess, getting feelings that maybe he's never felt before.
Yeah.
And he realized he wants to stay and start a family.
Right.
And that's his happy thought. And it, boom, kicks into real time. And he's like, oh shit, that's my happy thought. And you see him like flying. And he starts to like forget it for a moment. And Tinkerbell's like, all you gotta do is keep thinking about that. And boom, he's back. He's Peter Pan. And as a kid, this was like one of my favorite moments of the movie. I was like always really excited when he becomes Pan again. And he's like flying through Neverland and everyone's super excited. And he like one-ups Rufio. He goes and like cuts off his belt and Rufio's pants fall down. Pretty good, man. Rufio, what did you think was gonna happen with Rufio and Peter next, Alan?
Oh, Rufio, confronts him. And he's like kind of pissed off. and you think there's gonna be some like fight. You know, he's heated, he's kind of pissed, and at the last second, Rufio kind of like gets to a knee and gives him the sword and be like, "It's really you. You're Peter Pan.
You are the Pan."
Yeah, you are the Pan." And one part that stood out to me was he said, "You can fly, you can fight, and you can crow." But at no point did Peter prove he knows how to fight. Like, where did that come from? He never fought Rufio. He's like, "Oh, you can fight." It's like, okay, but they didn't show that.
Look, Alan, he can fight, okay? And he can fly and crow. So,
well, obviously we can see him flying, and the crowing thing is weird, but
a
he can do
meaningless
that.
gesture anyway.
Yeah, but there's
You guys, we
fighting.
didn't watch The Crow. We watched Hook.
You can fly, you can fight, and you can watch the crow.
So Peter Pan's back. You know? He got all 3 checked off the list. Rufio conceded. It's a big deal because once Rufio concedes, like, oh shit, it's Peter Pan. Even Rufio knows now.
And he's got that like childlike energy again. And he has his Peter Pan outfit, but he like immediately forgets where he came from. Like immediately. He goes up later that night and talks to Tinkerbell, and she's like, "You're gonna have to leave soon." And he's like, "No, I'm just gonna be here forever. What are you talking about?" She's like, "Remember your kids?" And he's like, "Oh fuck, that's right."
Peter Pan ain't got no kids.
Peter Pan
This is the part where Tinkerbell gets
Take me
big.
on, Maury.
Right.
And there's what I thought was a pretty awkward scene.
So you said she gets big, right?
Yeah, she turns into like a full-grown person.
Right, out of nowhere.
Yeah, she's not a fairy. She's like a person now. And that whole scene I thought was weird because there was a lot of like tension, almost like sexual tension. She even mentions it.
Yeah, she's pretty much in love with Peter Pan.
Yeah. And she mentions, I forget the exact words, but she says something to the effect of like, "I've always wanted to do this," which is basically kiss him because she like in love with him. And they end up do kissing. She kisses him. And for a brief moment, he kind of gets lost in the lust there. You know, he's like, "Oh, cool."
Julia Roberts. All
yeah.
right.
You know, like, all right, I'm kissing Tinkerbell. Like, this is cool. And after he comes back, he's like, "No, I have a wife and kids." So that part got weird because now he's in this weird 3-way triangle across how many years with the, what's her name? Wendy, Moira, and now Tinkerbell. And it's just like, what is going on? This is too weird.
The man's irresistible.
She's like, "Motherfucker, you said I had nice legs."
And he almost
He did
fell
say
for
that.
it, too.
He did.
He came on to her.
Right?
So he can't get with Tinkerbell because he has a wife that he married because he couldn't get with Wendy. So he's basically just going from like person to person. Like, what?
I don't know, man.
It's weird.
It is kind of a strange scene that could probably have been cut
Yeah.
or at least replaced with something else. So I've always thought it was strange as well that she becomes normal size out of nowhere. I think she loses her wings too, and it's just like then she just becomes Tinkerbell again. And we don't know how it happened or why, but that's fine. Whatever. It's time for the Lost Boys to assemble. Peter Pan says he's got a plan, which is basically just storm Hook's fucking base.
It's not really a plan.
But we see them all armoring up, right? The Lost Boys, they're putting on like bamboo armor and they're getting ready to head out there to fight him. And Jack he's gone full pirate at this point. Like he's like a mini-me of like Captain Hook. It's pretty funny. He looks exactly like him. He has the same wig. And I mean, it's happening on the screen right now, but basically Hook is like, "All right, I'm going to pierce your ear, then you're like legitimately a pirate." And he's going to do it with this hook. Like this, they do not pierce ears correctly in this universe.
Whoa. Okay, this is going to sound really dumb. When he did that scene with the hook, and he's like, "You said he was trying to pierce his ear?" I thought he was trying to give him some kind of like lobotomy.
No, he was trying
I
to
thought he
pierce
was
his
like,
ear.
because he was like going towards his ear. I thought he was
cut
gonna
his
like
head open with his hook
Yeah.
and fuck with his
I
brain.
No, he
maybe
gives
not
him an
that.
earring first.
I thought he was gonna like just do something really fucked up. I thought he was gonna like.
Here's an earring. Let me open your skull up.
Time to die. Fucking.
What?
Oh my god, that makes so much more sense when you said earring. Because I'm like, what the fuck?
Damn. You must have been taking a note at that point. Cause,
I did. I put
he opens up a box of earrings and he finds one for Jack.
I put lobotomy WTF. But now I know he's just piercing his ear.
Anyway, Robin Williams, Peter Pan shows up. He's full on Peter Pan at this point. He's by himself. He goes and he he approaches Hook and he's like, I'm taking my son. And, you know, Jack's like, I'm home already. Like, I don't even know who the fuck you are. Peter Pan kind of has a little bit of a scuffle with the pirates, but he kind of gets quickly overwhelmed. There's like a lot of these fucking guys. And he calls Bangarang.
Now, I made a note here, before he calls the Bangarang, there's actually a couple scenes where he stabs a couple of those pirates pretty good. Like,
oh, yeah.
You don't see any blood, but like he definitely has some good thrusts. Like, they got stabbed by a sword. They're dead.
Done.
Yeah. So there we go with the PG thing. I keep bringing it up. I mean, I don't care, but he definitely stabbed some people.
Fuck yeah, he does, bro. His life was in danger. He was defending himself.
Early on, when he first gets dropped with the Lost Boys, he's talking to the group of them, and Rufio's there. He says, you know, where are all the adults? And Rufio says, all the adults are pirates, and we kill pirates. And he meant it. Like, that was real talk.
Peter did.
Like,
he kills a couple guys here at the end. Presumably more. I mean, we only see a couple of the stabbing, but he's fighting all of them.
Well, when the Lost Boys show up, when the Bangarang gets called, they show up with a bunch of, like, well, they have swords and stuff, and they're fighting off pirates, but they have, like, all gag weapons. Mm-hmm. Remember, like, it's like Little Giants, it's just, like, all gags. They all have gag weapons. You guys remember what weapons they have?
My favorite one was the chicken in the, like, Gatling gun that they just shoot eggs out of, but there's, like, an actual chicken, like, laying eggs, like, live
Real time,
ammunition.
yeah.
Real time. Just you could just keep shooting eggs because there's a chicken just supplying them.
They also use mirrors. They just, like, shine light in their eyes and annoy them. That's a pretty good one. One guy has, like, a bead gun. He lays out beads on the ground, and they all slip on him.
Oh, that was so disappointing. I thought he was gonna bring out the flamethrowers because he has like these like two huge tubes.
Well, it's because you just saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
it'd be pretty funny if, like he just roasts the entire boat. Yeah.
Are you guys okay? Well, the pirates ain't.
Right.
This goes exactly back to what Steve just said, is that Rufio said they kill pirates. Where they can't kill pirates with eggs and marbles.
It's really more like we kill pirates sometimes. The rest of the time, we just annoy them with weird weapons.
Yeah, I know. It is kind of silly. It's kind of silly and goofy. I don't mind it, though. It kind of takes me back to my excuse of, like, these kids are here to have fun more than anything. Like,
except Rufio.
They just want to fuck around. Like,
right. Well, it's that reminder that, like, these are kids.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna do kid shit. That's kid shit.
And as a kid, I thought it was so cool. In fact,
Yeah.
all the gag weapons was, like, one of my favorite scenes as a kid. Now it's one of my least.
So the
That's
kids
right.
want to do kid shit. What about the pirates?
They want to do pirate shit.
So the pirates want to kill the kids. What
Yeah, and that's the weirdest part of all
like
for
the pirates
me.
should just murder those kids.
Right? Pirates are like, oh, let's kill this gang of kids.
No, they have eggs and marbles.
Also, a quick note: Thud, who's the fat kid, he has, like, a special ability. He can roll into a perfect ball. It's like someone had to make a prop of this kid as a ball. Think about that. And then he just, like, rolls into people, like, down a slope. He'll just, like, take people down like he's bowling for fucking pirates or something.
Imagine you work at some workshop, special effects workshop. Your project for the next 3 weeks is building, like, a life-size doll of a like 12-year-old kid rolled up in a ball.
So when you get pulled over, you're like, I swear, officer, it's for work. I'm not weird.
It's not a real kid. It's not a real kid. It's not a real kid. Oh my god.
But during all the commotion of all these kids using their gag weapons, Peter goes to save Maggie, and Rufio wants a piece of the hook.
Yes.
Steve, why don't you tell us about how that fight goes down?
Rufio ends up dead.
No build up.
No build up. Yeah, he bounces around. He's like, "I'm Rufio, motherfucker." He shows off a little bit, and then
oh no, I'm
he
dead.
gets like 2 swings. Yeah, oh no, I'm dead. That's really what happened. He gets like 2 swings in before Hook like just stabs him through the abdomen. And it's like all of a sudden we're back to like the violent reality of this. It's like here's like 5 minutes these kids with these like funny weapons like shooting chicken eggs and cereal and marbles, whatever the hell it's supposed to be, and then all of a sudden like here's Hook stabbing Rufio. For realsies though.
Here we go, back to the PG thing. I mean, there was no blood, but he stabbed him pretty good.
And Peter, like, there's a funny moment. Me and my brother Robert and my other brother Tyler, actually, we always laugh at this. When Rufio gets stabbed, Peter stops in midair and goes, "Hook, no!" But like all this wind rushes at him, like there's like this huge fan blowing on him. Right. It's just like so dramatic.
Like this huge gust of wind happens to come through at that moment, like
so
Rufio's soul hitting the world.
But Peter comes down to Rufio, and here's another touching moment for me. I'm gonna be honest, I almost got choked up when it happened. like Rufio, in his like dying words, he tells Peter, he's like, you know what? I wish I had a dad like you.
Do you know what I wish? I wish I had a dad like you.
And then he passes, and he's done.
He's just dead.
They clearly have the ability to go back to the real world. It's like at that rate, or maybe your biological parents aren't around anymore, depending on how long you've been there. But like, go back to the real world, get yourself adopted. Why are you
Fucking
staying?
dead, bro.
Well, he's dead now, but he wasn't dead like 3 days ago.
The weirdest part is after he dies, there's like no mention after that. He's just gone. They don't come back to him. They don't have a funeral.
They don't even act sad that he's dead.
They don't show him.
The
It's
other
just like he's
don't
dead.
even mention him.
Yeah, they don't even mention him.
Fuck, the
He's
Ewoks
just
helped
dead.
Luke burn Vader. Like, nobody does anything for Rufio.
Yeah. They don't even say like, oh, let's remember
Look,
him.
they
He's
pay
just
their
gone.
respects off screen. There's a lot going on, okay?
Right?
Rufio's
Let me
now
defend this.
out of the movie completely for the rest of the movie. He's dead.
Now, Jack, Peter's son, realizes at that point when Rufio dies, like, oh fuck, this shit has gone too far, and he kind of remembers that Peter's his dad, and he just tells him, let's go home, like, enough of this fighting shit. Let's go. And Peter's prepared to do that. He takes his kids, and he's just gonna leave, but how does Hook convince Peter to stay?
Hook convinces Peter to stay with the classic Frieza move from Dragon Ball Z. If you ever watch the Frieza saga, Goku beats Frieza, and then Goku lets Frieza go. And he's like, okay, I'm just going to leave, And that's what Hook does. He's like, okay, I don't even need to fight. Or that's what Peter does. He's like, I don't even need to fight you. He's like, I'm just out. Like, fuck this. You can do whatever you want. Like, I'm just going to go home. And, but then Hook kind of double crosses him.
No, he says, I'm gonna keep coming back.
Oh yeah, he says, I'm going to keep coming back. And he still tries to fight him, just like Frieza.
He says, I'll come after your children's children's children.
Yeah. I'll go after your grandkids and your great grandkids. Like, I'm going to keep showing up in the real world and kidnapping your children.
That's pretty dark too. Here we go again. Like,
how does Hook do that? Like, when Peter would go visit the real world from Neverland, he had the fairy dust magic and he could fly.
It's explained in a game. There's a game of this film, and it shows when Hook comes into the real world, it's like his ship flies.
I was going to say, in the animated movie, I think, or in the story, they could bring the ship through and they'd fly in it. I guess that was what they wanted to have be for this too.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of never really said in the movie.
It's just part of the Pan lore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Peter Pan does have his final face-off with Captain J. Hook, and they, they're pretty evenly matched until at one point Hook overtakes him. But Peter has the power of everyone believing in him. And that kind of, like, helps him get the upper hand. You remember everyone's like, I believe in you, Peter.
I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in you, Peter. I believe in you. You are the Pan. You are Peter Pan. I believe in you. Peter
I believe in you. And I would think that would be sweet if it wasn't so out of nowhere. Like, it just was too abrupt. Like, they're fighting and, like it's just the action music kind of stops.
It's too bad the R. Kelly song "I Believe I Can Fly" wasn't available yet in '91.
A couple more years.
Yeah, a couple more years.
I made a note here on this last fight. Hook does a move where he actually uses his hook for the first and only time at the end of the movie, and he kind of cuts Peter. And this is the first time you actually see any blood, or the last time. The very end, he cuts him with the hook on his like kind of forearm, and you see a little bit of blood.
Yeah, they can only have a little tiny bit in a PG movie.
But everyone else can get stabbed.
I mean, you know
no
that.
blood.
You work for the MPAA, right? So the way it wraps up basically is Hook goes to attack Peter, but his hook gets stuck in that giant crocodile that we assume is dead. But I guess it's not, because his hand's stuck in it and the crocodile kind of starts like waking up and it like looks down at Hook and it just like, it breaks out of its binds like somehow, comes down and just like swallows Hook, I guess, right?
I thought it was a statue that like fell over and it just falls on Hook.
No, it was supposed to be the actual crocodile.
Oh,
They do
okay.
mention that.
Yeah.
Shit,
So I guess it was just like clinging to life somehow with Neverland rules, unless you're directly like killed,
But it finally, I mean, that's what it's wanted forever, is to eat Hook.
And it gets to.
Yeah.
So Hook gets eaten. They did it.
Yep. And Peter decides it's time to go. I mean, it gets kind of sad because the Lost Boys are like, well, you're going to fucking leave us again, shithead. Like, you did. He's like, you know, we need you here. Like, you're important to this group and everything. But he has his family and he has to go. He elects the new leader because Rufio's dead. He gives Thud the sword. And he says, you're going to be in charge now.
Thud Pan.
And, they go back. There's a really good moment when the kids get back and they see Moira. And I think it's a good bit of acting. Like, she's, like, waiting in the nursery, and the kids, like, kind of surprise her, and her reaction seems, like, really genuine. Did you guys notice that?
Where she also has, like, a breakdown, like, she's, like, crying because, like, what's going on? How are my kids gone? And now they're back, like, miraculously.
Yeah,
she's like, freaking out.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
The whole movie's well acted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Toodles gets his marbles back.
He does, but before he does, real quick, I wanted to say one thing. That Peter gets back and he's like in front of the house and he sees Smee, who ran away earlier from the fight. Smee's like sweeping up bottles in the road. I guess Smee like migrated back to the regular world and just got a job and was like, and he sees Peter and he's like, had a rough night, huh? And it's kind of like implied, like, wait, was this just a dream?
During the melee on the ship, he went into Hook's cabin and stole a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he stole all his jewels and just split.
Right. Just like a real spouse. Oh, we're out. We're divorcing. I'm taking all your shit.
I'm getting the shit. But yeah, you were saying Toodles gets his marbles back?
Yeah, and then that's when I realized that was a joke. I was like, oh. I was like, he got his marbles back.
He did get his marbles
back.
He's
not crazy.
And he gets his happy thought back, and it ends in kind of like I don't know, it doesn't end too grim. Like, Toodles flies away, and everyone just kind of looks at him in wonder and accepts it, and they're like, this is happening now.
I thought that was a little too much at the end there.
Somehow there's like some of Tink's dust inside the bag with the marbles.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's going back to Neverland.
Yeah.
And it's
I guess that's the case.
He's going to live forever as like a 90-year-old man. Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's nice. It is a little silly, but it is, kind of sweet at the same time.
No, I dig it.
Anyway, that's Hook. That's where it wraps up. You guys have any final thoughts about the movie itself?
Too long. That was my complaint. That last half.
Well, we'll talk about that in the rating, I guess. Okay. I mean about the way it ended.
I just thought it was too long.
I'm going to disagree with that, but Spielberg was actually not real happy with it when it first came out. And apparently he had some amount of difficulty dealing with some of the kids. And initially didn't think he really liked it. And apparently has kind of come around on the movie since then.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know that in a 2013 interview, he said he really doesn't like the movie.
It's interesting. I think I've heard that part of the reason his view softened is out of nostalgia since Robin Williams has passed. But yeah. I mean, other than that, at one point during filming, John Voight brought Angelina Jolie by the set with him. He and Hoffman had been in Midnight Cowboy together.
Okay.
And Angelina Jolie was like a teenager, I think 14, 15, and I guess really wanted to meet Hoffman and see what the set was like. And Voight brought her around, and she told Hoffman she wanted to be an actress. And Hoffman, I've heard, went home and said something to his wife like, I don't know, she's going to have an awful tough road ahead of her trying to be an actress. And look what happened.
Hackers.
Yeah.
Then Hackers came out.
Dude, Hackers was like 4 years later, yeah.
She showed him.
Yeah.
I've made it, baby. I've been in Hackers.
Hackers, right.
And Tomb Raider.
Yeah, much later, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, 6 years later. Anyway, I have a question for you guys.
Here it is.
Who is the Jesus character of the film Hook? What do you think? Alan, any thoughts?
It's Toodles.
Toodles,
dude. Because at the end, he gets his marbles back and he's kind of resurrected and he goes back to Neverland where he belongs, and it's Toodles.
All right, Steve.
It's Peter. Like, he dies and is reborn and dies and is reborn like 3 separate times across the story. Absolutely.
Well, Jesus only died once.
Yeah, well, but it's a resurrection. So
He's triple Jesus.
Well, the actual Jesus character is Rufio. Because
he didn't come back at all.
He died for Jack's sins. He'd come back in our hearts.
All right.
That's one I could somewhat agree. That's weird, but I'll agree.
He died for Jack's sins, man. Fuck you guys, okay? It's Jesus, motherfucker.
Look, you invented it, so the answer is whatever you say it is. I can't argue with you about that.
Who's the most obscure character? It's the dog.
Nana.
Yeah, it's Nana.
Oh yeah, Nana, best character in the movie.
Or what about maybe the Jesus character is actually the car driver, Nigel?
Oh God, yeah.
Is it Nigel?
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway,
we forget about Thud. He gets handed over. He's the new Jesus.
He's going to die next time Robin Williams comes back for sure. All right. So, Alan, you wanted to talk about your rating. You were saying it was too long. Why don't you go ahead and give us your full rating on any rating scale you want, of course.
Okay. So I know mine is definitely going to be a lot lower than your guys's. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10 Lost Boys.
Wow, this is the most wrong you've ever been in your life.
And I knew it. I knew you guys were going to give me shit.
Moment.
But I have a couple points on that.
Good.
The biggest one, without anything in regards to the movie, is just your background about Peter Pan, and if you've seen it a lot or if you're into the story. Because like you guys mentioned, and I know, especially you, Corey, you said you loved this. It was special to you as a kid because you watched a lot. You knew the story. It was great when you were a kid in 1991. I knew a little bit about Peter Pan. I wasn't super big on it. But watching it now, just without, being into Peter Pan 2019, it depends a lot on your ties to that movie at that time. If you just watch it now like I did, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah, I know it's not supposed to, but without being invested into Peter Pan, it's just kind of nothing. It was definitely too long. So even if you like the movie, I felt like the last third, even the second act, I knew what they were going for. Peter's getting all his powers back. He's realizing the light's gone. He's getting back to his ways, but they could have cut out some time. I mean, some of that dragged, and all of that for like a kind of anticlimactic last fight. Rufio's death wasn't that impactful. Like we talked about, he just kind of died and was forgotten about. No one really cried for that. I didn't expect anyone to cry, but for how important Rufio was, he kind of just got offed pretty fast. And like I said, I mean, it just felt a little goofy at some points. It wasn't very interesting to me. And again, that depends a lot if you're invested in the story. So it just didn't hit that emotional note for me like you guys.
All right. I'm going to go next and I'll let Steve have the final words.
All right.
I'm going to give this one a 9.5 out of 10 nearsighted gynecologists. It's probably in my top 20 favorite movies of all time. It's my favorite Steven Spielberg movie, but a close contender is definitely Jurassic Park. I absolutely adore this movie. To me, it's like, it reminds me of like the magic that exists in life for some reason. Like, it's so weird how much it connects me to being a child and how much it connects me to joy in general. I really like the performances. I love Robin Williams and I miss him a lot. I think he is like one of the all-time greats. I love the score in this movie. I think Steven Spielberg was amazing as a director in this film. I like the sets a lot. And I really just love, I don't know, there's a lot of sentimentality to it for sure, but I love what happens in this movie start to finish. There's some small things that that we made fun of and stuff, but for me, that's mostly joking. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I can think of that I'd say is a complaint is when Tinkerbell becomes large. But other than that, I mean, I've heard people say this movie has tonal inconsistencies, and I've never gotten that vibe. And maybe it does on paper, and my attachment is too strong, but I absolutely love this movie. It's almost perfect for me. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Steve, what's up?
I'm going to be only very slightly lower than you. I'm going to go with 8 out of 10 fantasy pirates. I will agree that Rufio's death goes by with a lot less impact than I would have thought would be the case for this story. I will agree there are other things that could be nitpicked about it. It's absolutely not too long. It's not even close to being too long. It could have another half an hour in it. It wouldn't be too long. It's one of the few children's movies, so to speak, that actually has anything even remotely resembling an attempt at a real arc in it. The actors were basically all perfect, even the kids. It's virtually impossible to have a movie with this many children in it and have them all pull it off this well. Charlie Korsmo is genuinely a fantastic child actor. He's in some of my other favorite movies. The set design was absolutely impeccable. The world they built for this movie was beyond compare. There are other movies that may be at that level. There is nothing else I can think of, anything else I can think of, where they did a better job of building the world than they did in this film. I can understand up to a point the criticism that it has some tonal inconsistency. I think I can see a little bit of it. And I think we addressed it, to be honest, but it's not that bad. Absolutely a gem that I've always loved. I'm willing to concede it's impossible for me to know with 100% certainty that my nostalgia for that time, et cetera, isn't slightly coloring my view of it, but I honestly think if I'd never seen the movie before and you showed it to me now, I'd still give it pretty close to the same rating.
I have a quick question for you, Steve. Whatever happened to Charlie Korsmo?
Korsmo was in a handful of big movies. He was in this. He was in What About Bob with Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray, which was pretty funny. He was the lead actor in Dick Tracy. One of the last movies he did was Can't Hardly Wait, and that was like the end of his career. He decided he was not interested in acting anymore. And he was getting offers. He literally decided he was not interested. He went to MIT. He got a degree in physics. He then went to Yale and got a graduate degree. And since then, he's been working with think tanks and political groups.
Wow.
Yeah, honest to God. Brilliant guy.
Dang.
I think his politics tend to lean pretty right, which is something that I've intentionally never looked into because I don't want to find out he's some like super hardcore right winger. It would destroy my image of him. So
he's this cool guy and he's some like crazy,
right?
Yeah,
well, he's a scientist, so
right? Because he really is A, super intelligent, and B, was a really good actor as a kid. So I got to give him credit for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're not doing a hat this time around because next time we're reviewing the previous hat pick, which is locked in and can't be overwritten. Over the Top. Alan's pick.
Was that actually the holy shit? That was the pick.
It was.
Oh yeah, dude, that's gonna be a good one.
Fuck, you think Hook was bad? It's gonna be miserable. God damn.
Why do you think I vetoed that?
Right?
For Hook.
I think this might be the best one.
Yeah. I needed something joyous before we watch
We
it.
are on opposite wavelengths here because I'm excited for this next one.
Maybe it'll be good. Maybe I'll like it. Who knows?
You're not gonna like it.
Maybe I'll like
Tell
it.
you right now.
I give it a 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece.
Fuck, dude.
Best movie since Tokyo Drift.
You guys thought Showgirls was hard to sit through.
I like Showgirls.
Actually, so do I.
Oh, see, now here we're getting your leaning. It's not so bad now, huh?
No, you know what? I've always thought Showgirls was a very good comedy.
Exactly. It's the best unintentional comedy that's ever been made. It's hilarious.
Well, if you want to talk to us, you can instant message us on Instagram or DM us, whatever. We also have a Facebook page. You can email us at bigdumbmovie@gmail.com. If you listen to us on YouTube or if you listen to us at all, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube or subscribe to us. It helps a lot. The thumbs up really helps get us like pushed up in the list so more people can hear us. So if you listen to us there, please do that. And I guess we'll catch you next time on Over the Top. So we'll see ya.
See ya.
Good night.